You already know what time it is, man. The young goat in the building. Make sure you tune in to Tru Heel Heat podcast.
Oye, te habla tío Sabio Vega. This is Sabio Vega and you watching Tru Heel Heat a mi manera o pa' la calle.
This is the knockout artist, Chris Hero. And if you're looking for some true heel heat, you better listen to them boys.
Hello everyone, it's the hardcore legend Mick Foley wishing a nice day to everyone there, right there at Tru Heel Heat. Yeah!
It's Saturday morning. You know what time it is. It's time for some Tru Heel Heat. It's been a wild and crazy busy week in professional wrestling from last Saturday's AEW Full Gear, where Will Ospreay was revealed as the blockbuster signing for All Elite Wrestling, where MJF and Jay White had one of the most polarizing main events in AEW history, while Swerve Strickland and Hangman Adam Page had one of the greatest matches in AEW pay-per-view history, all the way through the week where we hear Jay White is upset with the booking from Full Gear. We also hear that MJF is injured. Randy Orton returns tonight. We're going to talk all about everything going on ahead of tonight's WWE Survivor Series. It's the Tru Heel Heat flagship podcast. Let's hit the intro. Hello. It is me, your Tru Heel Phenom SP3. We are live on the Tru Heel Heat YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter for Tru Heel Heat 252, gearing up for Survival, discussing the latest wrestling news, including Jay White reportedly being upset with the build and the match with MJF at AEW Full Gear. AEW signs Will Ospreay while reportedly re-signing MJF along with all the injuries that he got at Full Gear. We'll discuss that. Recap of this week in wrestling with AEW Full Gear with the epic bloody Texas death match between Swerve Strickland and Hangman Adam Page. Dynamite, ROH TV on Honor Club. Yeah, WWE, SmackDown, Raw, NXT, Impact on Access TV was preempted this week. So we got a lot less shows than what we missed. So we're going to spend more time with our match of the week and final predictions for WWE Survivor Series War Games tonight. And of course, Chrissy Love made it 3 weeks straight of appearing on the show, so she had to be, obligated to miss another show because she is the Roman Reigns of the Tru Heel Heat flagship podcast. So, of course, when Chrissy Love has to pull a Roman Reigns move, the man that comes in the clutch, Mr. Clutch of the Tru Heel Heat YouTube channel, he is the true draw. Josh, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Looking forward to talking about another week that came and passed.
Came and passed, and a lot went down. Another busy week in professional wrestling. Go figure. And we're only got one more month of the year left, Josh. One more month.
Yeah.
It's been a wild and crazy year, but we're finally nearing it down. So we appreciate y'all for joining us live here on the Flagship Podcast every single Saturday, 11:05 a.m. Eastern Time. Prince is here, so you all need to be here as well. While I go through my spill, I'll just give Prince center stage here with all the flames. He's flaming up. He's fire right now. So yes, drop that like button. We always appreciate that. It helps out the YouTube algorithm so much. Of course, you can also share this video with all your wrestling fans, friends, and family on all your favorite social media platforms. If you're new to the Tru Heel Heat YouTube channel, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell to stay notified for all the great content here. And of course, if you are joining us live right here on the Tru Heel Heat YouTube channel, a sound off in the live chat. We love to interact with all of you. You are kind of our other hosts here on the show, so give us your thoughts on this week in professional wrestling in the live chat. And of course, we'll highlight as many of your comments as possible. But if you're feeling generous, you could send a super chat donation. Prince needs some fresh new shoes. Josh needs some more hair gel because his hair looking all nice right now. I need some diapers and underwear for the babies. So send those super chat donations. Those always help out. It goes directly to the contributors that you see on screen with us here. So every little bit matters and it gives back. And of course, we will highlight your comment on screen with us here. We got G Loke in the chat saying what it do at Tru Heel Heat. We also got Frantic World here with us saying what's up, THH and chat. We also got Christopher Kidd, one of our good brothers, saying, and we live, baby, yeah. We also got Power Driver Finisher saying, is Jay White from New Zealand? Yes he is. The exotic accent. I probably gave it away. Jaleel saying good morning, everyone. We also got Power Driver Finisher says that explains Jay White's social media being Jay White NZ. Almost want to call him Jay Whitens.
Yeah, it's been like that. It's always been like that.
Yeah.
Ever since even before the Switchblade gimmick, that's always been his name.
Exactly. We got one here. Ace saying, what's up, SP3? Josh in chat. We got Annika here with us saying Princey. We got Greg here with us saying hi. Power Driver Finisher finally saying what's up. What's going on, good brother? Love the comments in the chat. Always makes it fun for us here. But this is why we do the show, is for all of you here. So this is why we shout y'all out to start off every edition of our flagship podcast with our Tru Heel roll call, where we shout out those supporting us on social media, as well as over at patreon.com/Tru Heel Heat, the best place where you can support us when we're not on screen with us, or with you here on the channel. $3 a month gets you exclusive content, Tru Heel Heat Prediction Championship, which still on the leaderboard. Still on the leaderboard, folks. Someone take me down. They can't take me down, Josh. They can't take me down.
They can't.
We're going to start off with our Tru Heel World Card. Tru Heel Trinity, our top 3 conversation starters on the Tru Heels group page on Facebook. We got Cassidy Haynes of Body Slam is number 3. Number 2, Fonzie LaFleur. And number 1, Stewie Palmer. Our Patreon backers, we got Vala B. We got Alan Weinstein, Negro Buck, Nick Jackson, Alex McCarthy, Professor Chris, Austin K, Robert, Steve, Fifth Generation Carney, Ladarius, John, aka WrestleScopes, Dan, Kobe, Queen No Nay, Dolores, John Martin, DJ Eric, Marcus Ryan, James, Alan Banky, Santo, and Christopher and Victoria Kidd. Thank you so much for supporting us at patreon.com/Tru Heel Heat. Very, very humbled by all the support that we have gotten in 2023, whether it be on Patreon, whether it be here on the channel. I looked at it the other day. 7,000 new subscribers in just this year alone, Josh. Like we literally like tripled the amount that we had originally at the start of 2023. We've tripled it in this year alone.
That's crazy. We're trying to make it to even 11K by the end of the year. So
we're very close. We're less than 200 away from 11K. So if anyone is joining us now for the first time, hit that subscribe button and join us here. Pretty much like 5 to 6 days a week, we got consistent content here on the Tru Heel Heat YouTube channel. RPGs is here with us. Keep sounding off in the chat. We love to shout y'all out, like to highlight your comments. And like I said before, those super chat donations help us out so much. Another great way you can support us, hit that join button. And for $1 a month, you can become a member. We also got exclusive content over there, and you get in-chat perks, like always having your comment highlighted, as well as special emojis that will be starting very, very soon. We got Bell here with us as well. But let's get into what we missed, Josh. And I feel like it's full circle. I was just with you last Sunday talking about this show, and we're going to start off this edition of the Tru Heel Heat flagship podcast talking about AEW Full Gear from last Saturday, November 18th. 2023, and boy, oh boy, did it have one of the matches of the year, as the show featured Swerve Strickland, bloody faced and all. I said it yesterday on AE Ramble, Josh. The Mount Rushmore of bloody faces, Swerve Strickland, has now officially joined it, as he defeated Hangman Adam Page in an absolutely bloody, incredible Texas death match, one of the best matches of the year. Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, as well as more importantly, myself, gave this match 5 stars. 5 stars. Like I said at the top of the show, you also had Will Ospreay revealed as the blockbuster signing for All Elite Wrestling, but he will start with AEW next year after he is done with New Japan Pro Wrestling. You had Orange Cassidy pulled out an upset win, finally defeating and beating John Moxley in a great match to retain the AEW International Championship. You had a match that exceeded everyone's expectations. Ricky Starks and Big Bill won a death-defying 4-way ladder match against FTR, LFI, and the House of Black, featuring some dangerous bumps, but the champs retain, and now they will move on to probably face our new #1 contenders, as the Golden Jets defeated the Young Bucks in another great match to win their shot at the AEW World Tag Team titles. Adam Copeland, Sting, and Darby Allin beat the Patriarchy of Christian Cage, Luchasaurus, and Nick Wayne in a fun trios opener to the show that featured Adam Copeland with the face paint of Sting and Darby Allin, and Ric Flair in their corner as they picked up the win in the opening matchup. You had Timeless Tony Storm hide everything from a shoe to a metal plate in her ass to defeat Hikaru Shida to win the AEW Women's World Championship. Meanwhile, Julia Hart beat Sky Blue and Chris Statlander in a very good match to win the TBS Championship. And despite the fact him and Samoa Joe retained the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles against the Guns, the Guns then injured his knee. He was sent to the hospital. Before he went to the hospital, he begged Adam Cole to keep his title safe. Adam Cole then stepped up and was billed to replace him in the matchup against Jay White on the show, before he would come back as Stone Cold Max Freeman, and MJF defeated Jay White to retain the AEW World Championship in the main event. like I said at the top of the show, one of the more polarizing AEW pay-per-view main events of all time. I enjoyed it. Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, he definitely enjoyed it. He gave the match 4.5 stars. What has been your thoughts now, a week after the fact, of like kind of the feedback and all the fallout from the main event booking of MJF and Jay White, how Jay White looks coming out of this main event and the show overall for AEW Full Gear, Josh?
I still feel the same. I thought it was a great show. I thought it was a great main event. I do agree with like all like the over the top booking, like of it, like the ambulance being the ambulance being used and stuff like that. Yeah, it's over the top, but I guess me personally, it didn't really bother me. I thought it was just like more funny than anything. But no, I still feel the same way. I don't see nothing wrong with what happened. With Jay White, he still looks strong. I mean, he didn't lose clean. So it was not like, wasn't like MJ came back with one leg and then beat him clean. That would have been kind of like a little bit more ridiculous. But I mean, like I said, I still feel the same. I don't know what was the crying about.
I've read more of the criticism to the matchup, and a lot of the big moments went against the story and stuff like that. I'm sorry. I've seen plenty of Tanahashi matches where his leg gets worked over and he still somehow does the high fly flow at the end of the match. So it's just like, I don't know. Maybe I'm a little immune to it, or immune to the criticism, or don't see it, or don't get up in arms as much about it. I very much enjoyed the matchup. On second viewing, I did rate it lower than I originally rated it. I think when we did our review, I gave the main event 4.25 stars. On the second viewing, I was like, I'll give it 4 stars. I was like, it could have been much, much better. I think they are capable of a 5-star matchup without all the booking. That's my biggest issue with the booking, is that it took away from what could have been a 5-star main event.
Yeah, exactly. I think if they would have done it like the Continental Classic with like no interference, just a straight up wrestling match, then it's probably different. But the way that they've been using MJF, they're gonna start doing some like gimmicky stuff like when it comes to that, because MJF is not, he's a great wrestler, but that's not his persona. That's just what it comes down to. So I mean, yeah, the match it is what it is at this point, but I mean, overall, it was a great match. Now, if they would have done all that over booking stuff, and it would have affected the match itself, like if the match was just like one-sided or it was very dull, then that would have been really bad.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And I said it yesterday. Jay White is gonna survive this, guys. How many different times do we have to count out a Jay White before you realize that this is not gonna be the thing that takes him out? But we'll talk more about where Jay White stands. When we get to the news portion of this part. But talking about the Swerve Strickland and Hangman Adam Page epic Texas death match, where does it rank for you as far as like the crazy death matches that AEW have had? Because I talked about it yesterday on Fightful Overbook. I put this higher than even the Moxley Hangman matchup from Revolution 2023 earlier this year. I put it higher than the epic lights out matchup between Omega and Moxley from Full Gear 2019. It just felt like everything in this match, the violence, the blood, the brutality, it had more meaning because of the build to get there and the story they told in the matchup, that I just put it at the top of every death match that AEW has done.
No, I agree. I think it's the one that they produced just because of the, like you said, that violent aspect of it. That's just what does it for me. And then all the antics that Hangman was doing with the staple gun and drinking the blood, which I still a little traumatized about. But
I love his post on Instagram said, "Now you're with me forever." Oh shit.
Yeah, so I think that's why it is the best one, just because of the violent aspect. Mox could go to that level because he's done it before. He's done it before, like all those years ago. But we haven't really seen. Well, we've seen like violent matches from Mox, but not to the extent that we saw on Saturday. At least not now.
Yeah. Yeah, not to that level. That was a different type of level that they went to there. We got Frantic World in the chat who says AEW Full Gear was really good. The Texas Death Match was nuts, and I thought the main event was great. We also got Bell who says Full Gear was really good. The main event was as a match was good, but I could have done without all the sports entertainment like stuff. Yeah, because I feel like the reason why people are so against the sports entertainment stuff because that's not what AEW is. Like, I want AEW to be the wrestling based sports presentation product that they promise with some sports entertainment sprinkled in. I can deal with your Tony Storm gimmick and the MJF and Adam Cole stuff if I'm getting bangers like Roosh and Jay White on Dynamite. If I'm getting matches like Swerve versus Hangman or the tag team ladder match or Golden Jets versus Young Bucks like we got on this show, I could deal with all the other melodrama nonsense.
Yeah, which I agree. I guess I give it more of a pass just because it's MJF. Because of like just like the way he is, he's more like, let's be real, he would be more prime for WWE than a lot of the wrestlers on the roster now. But if they would have done something like this, say with like Omega and Jay White, then I think I would have had a bigger issue because it's like, this is not what they do. Like, this is not their stuff. They're fucking ring generals. Let them work in the ring. So I think when it comes to that aspect, like using guys like that, I think like that should matter. Like you see the scope of like who's being used in that aspect. So I think that's why I give MJF a pass a little bit more when it comes to that. But if it would have been anybody else, I think I probably would have had a bigger issue because of that.
Yeah, Annika is also right. The sports entertainment segment of the year is still Mark Briscoe with Team TNA at the ranch. That's still the best sports entertainment thing that AEW has done in 2023.
And that was a segment, and that was like a full segment. That was a full segment.
Yeah. We got Ace saying, why is all three members of Blackpool Combat Club in the C2 tournament? It's not all three members because Wheeler Yuta is not in the tournament and he's a fourth member. I mean, when the three members are Bryan Danielson, Jon Moxley, and Claudio Castagnoli, why is this even a question? Should we even ask that question? I think that, Bryan Danielson, Claudio Castagnoli, and Jon Moxley are three of the best wrestlers in the company, regardless of what stable they are part of. So they should be in the Continental Classic.
And Danielson is usually like in and out of Blackpool. Like we know he's a member, but usually a lot of stuff he's been doing lately hasn't been with them. So you could kind of get away with Danielson being used in that aspect. And I think him and Claudio, they're in the same group, right? So they're probably going to be facing each other. Like, they're going to end up facing each other. That's going to be a banger. So, I don't mind it.
I don't mind it at all. We got Belta and Swerve versus Hangman was great, even if I could have done without the blood drinking. I don't mess with that unless I'm watching True Blood or Vampire Diaries. I grew up on TVD, so sue me. I mean, I'm okay with it because it's a moment that was a moment that I knew I was like, okay, we're watching something totally different. This is what I think that's the moment that I gave the match 5 stars. It was like 5 minutes in. When he drank his blood, I was like, okay, this is a 5-star match because I know I'm never gonna see anything like this again.
Yeah, it bugged me the fuck out. Usually when you do that in a match, then it's like, all right, like this is something going crazy. But again, even overall, it was a great showing for both guys. It wasn't like that's the only thing they relied on. That's what made it great too. They weren't relying so much on like weapons and crazy shit like that.
Yeah, and the escalation of the violence. That's what really made the matchup what it was. And speaking of which, that gets us to the news portion coming out of Full Gear, talking about that blood drinking spot. The spot got a lot of attention from fans, critics, and the like. Even got an article on TMZ over it. And a new report has a bit of detail about it. Yes. The match saw one moment where Paige drank some of Strickland's blood and then spat it back out, which has drawn a lot of attention and no small amount of criticism for a number of reasons. Fightful Select reports that the spot was a planned one, and the site notes that they were informed the day after Full Gear that Paige and Strickland planned and pitched the moment, and it was approved by the match producer. According to the site, people within AEW were very pleased with how the match was received and executed as a whole. I mean, like I said, I think it's one of the best matches of the year, period. I mean, like I said, I've been telling people for the last couple of weeks, got to start thinking about the end of the year awards. I think that it might be like there's a question if this might be the best match I've seen this year that didn't include a Will Ospreay or a Kenny Omega. I mean, like that's how epic this match was.
Not only that to me, but the feud itself. I
Yeah.
thought it's been like very entertaining. And then Swerve has gotten over completely. So nobody can't really complain like, oh, they're not utilizing Swerve. This basically to me made him a star. Like the whole feud kind of just elevated him to the point that it's like, yo, this guy could legit be a world champion next year. They really wanted to go that route.
And I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna give credit, and I know it may. I know, the people when we try to give credit to him over on In the Weeds yesterday, that was a Fightful product. He used to work over there. It's okay for me to do it here. Shout outs to Will Washington, because this all started when Will Washington got hired, and he's been looking out for family. This is like it's amazing that someone who was like us, just doing this, has come into a company and had this big of an influence on any talent, let alone it being a talent that he's so well connected to. He knows how he wants to be presented. He knows how he should be presented, and we're seeing it with how this feud was executed. Like I said last week, I'll say it here after this matchup. It's probably my AEW feud of the year.
No, like, if you really think about it on the bigger scope, it could be because again, the feud itself has been great, and then also the way it started, it wasn't like we didn't expect something like this was going to happen. It was just more Swerve calling Hangman a bitch. That's basically how it started.
Calling out the fact that Hangman done fell off since he lost the world title. Like it was just using a bit of truth and just hiding around it, just different stuff. And it's just build the animosity between the two guys has built and escalated ever since Wrestle Dream into what we saw at Full Gear. And the fact of we know that this chapter is over, but the feud is not over. Like I feel like when Swerve is the champion, I do believe it with my heart of hearts. Swerve Strickland should be and will be the AEW World Champion in 2024. I feel like Hangman Adam Page is a big pay-per-view matchup because then you have the new story of can Hangman even beat Swerve now that Swerve is 2-0 against him?
Yeah, I agree. I actually like that idea.
We got Annika in the chat saying, yep, big ups to Will. Shout outs to Will Washington, the good brother. Got to talk to him a little bit this week. We got Power Driver Finisher saying, watch, we find out he's the one pitching the sports entertainment. Nah, I'm pretty sure it's Jimmy Jacobs. Jimmy Jacobs, ever since he came into the company,
yeah.
That's when we've been seeing more of the sports entertainment stuff. And it's been revealed that he's been working with MJF for a lot of the Adam Cole stuff.
Yeah, he's been from what I know, he's been responsible for a lot of the like you said, the Cole and MJF stuff, because it's kind of similar to what Jericho and KO did, but just in my opinion. I mean, don't get me wrong, KO and Jericho, they were great together. The only problem with that, it was more the booking when they were either facing Roman Reigns or Seth Rollins within like a fucking, I think it was like a 16-week period where it was just them being involved. That was the only down part about it. But like them themselves, like you kind of see similarities to what
Definitely.
Jimmy did, because he was the one that was responsible for that too. I remember everyone was saying that he did the list, Festival of Friendship. He was responsible for, so all that stuff you could see it that he's been the one responsible for that. But he's also a great mind. Like I don't think he gets enough credit because remind you the whole thing with MJF and Adam Cole came out of nowhere too. It just kind of like, hey, let's see where this goes. Same thing kind of similar happened with the list, where the list was kind of like a one-time write-off, and then the reaction of it was so great that they were like, all right, let's keep going. And I think that's where he's really good at.
Yeah, I just feel like ever since Cole got injured, that's when the act has gotten stale. So I
Yeah.
understand the people that are like, in retrospect, maybe Cole should have done the turn at All In. And remember, I was here on this podcast predicting. I thought that was the finish to All In London was Cole turning and winning
On,
the AEW World
yeah,
Championship.
at least on hindsight, you could say, hey, maybe that was a good. Or if he was a world champion, he wouldn't have been put in the position where he hurt his foot. So you never know. Sometimes you never know. But Adam Cole has been kind of injury prone the last year or so. So you never know if it would have been that moment or another moment. So you never really want to speculate anything like that with somebody. But it sucks either way. I do kind of agree with like it being stale, but at the same time, the reason why is because he's not really there, and when he is there, it's not much he could really do at the moment. He's just walking out with the damn boot for the last few weeks. There's not much he could really do.
No, there's not much he could do, and now MJF is joining him with a limp. As MJF was banged up after AEW Full Gear as he dislocated his hip and aggravated a previous shoulder injury. The hip had to be popped back into place. The Wrestling Observer newsletter reports that there were two specific spots in his match with Jay White that led to the injuries. The dislocated hip happened, as you might expect, during a spot when he did an elbow drop off the top rope to the floor. The spot was meant to put White through the announce table, but the table collapsed when White was placed on it, and MJF felt that the crowd would have flattened if he didn't do the spot anyway, so he jumped from the top rope to the floor, and he was said to be in terrible pain after it happened. As for the shoulder issue, that happened after a top rope Uranagi. Yeah, he landed right on his side on that Uranagi. But there is some bright news when the MJF front, even though he's injured and will be out of action until AEW World's End, where he'll defend the AEW World Championship. More on that in a bit. Meanwhile, MJF was back in the news later in the week, as MJF has frequently made mention of the bidding war of 2024, and there's a new update if that has happened yet. House of Wrestling, our good friend Nick Houseman, who was here with us for the Survivor Series preview, reports that sources within WWE believe that the AEW World Champion has already quietly re-signed with All Elite Wrestling. It was also noted that there have been zero talks between MJF and WWE. The idea that the champion is set to be a free agent was described as a false narrative, and the belief is that he signed through 2027. A source said this is a completely in his head storyline. Another added 1,000%. I was told a while ago he is under a long-term deal, which is why they stopped pushing the 2024 stuff. AEW and MJF have yet to comment on if he has signed a new deal or not. But if this report is true, I suspect MJF to win at World's End, and he's going to cut a promo saying he re-signed with AEW.
That'd be a great move. Just to confirm, just to get all that stuff out of the way. I noticed it for a while, like, and we're talking about like last year when I was like the way there he was being used, and then even the beginning of the year he kind of had like that part-time kind of schedule, and I was like, nah, there's no way that they're catering to this guy now like the way that they are, and then not re-sign him. It was just too, we've seen it before. Don't get me wrong. Like, we've seen it before. We've seen people getting titles, and like that's their way. That's the company's way of like, hey, we gave you a title, you can sign this new contract. but it was the way he was being used that kind of convinced me like otherwise. Just because it doesn't happen just like that. Like you don't get the title and then all of a sudden you work a part-time schedule, especially at his age. So I knew something was up.
I knew something was up as soon as he came back at All Out last year. Like I was like,
Yeah.
it was very clear that he came back to work the program with CM Punk, and he was going to beat Punk for the AEW World Championship. And then this whole year-long run, I think that this was planned out from the beginning. They wanted him to break all these records, break the title defense record, break the longest reign record, because he's the youngest reigning champion already. So like they wanted him to break all these records. And if you're going to do that, if that's the plan, he better be locked up through past next year. So that's what when I saw how this title reign was playing out, and I saw that they had stopped, especially when he turned babyface, completely stopped talking about the 2024 stuff. He'll mention it in some interviews, say that he doesn't have a contract.
But it's like very like passive,
but
passive.
Yeah, it's very passing. It's not as big of a thing as he made it in that Ariel Helwani interview. And you can tell that
because even in the press conference, he was like, "Oh, as long as he pays me a lot of money," and that was like basically the biggest mention you heard. That's it.
Yep, he stopped saying it completely, because I think he is signed. I wouldn't be surprised if they did that. They have him announce it in Long Island after a big title defense at the end of the year, because this year has been the year of MJF, for better or worse, regardless of how you feel about it. He's held the world title for the entire year.
Yeah, and I think there's been way more good with MJF than bad. I think the only bad you could really say is like some of those promo segments where he was kind of relying on the crowd too much. I felt like there was a few promos where he did that, where like he'll say something in the crowd, like he'll rely on the crowd. I think that's fine to do that, but I think when you're too reliable on that could kind of take away from what you're trying to do. He did acknowledge it too. Like he did say, "Hey, I'll get better at it," and I think he has. I think he's more aware of like what he has to do. That's always been a great thing with MJF too. He hears the criticism and he's taking it very well. So I think this whole thing, even from Full Gear, I think he'll learn from it. I think he'll hear the criticism and I think he'll learn from it. So that's always been a good trait for somebody like in his spot, somebody that young, to be that self-aware. That's why, if they re-signed him, hey, that's a great move. I mean, that's the move they needed to make. Like, we could talk about Ospreay being their big signing, but this was definitely MJF. They needed to keep MJF. He's like their main piece. They needed to do it no matter what.
1000% agree. Like they've built so much of the company around him that it would just be this wouldn't be a good decision to build as much of the storylines and the company around somebody if they're going to be a free agent in January. We got Frantic World that says I could see Joe winning at World's End, and MJF comes back after 2 weeks getting his rematch at a Dynamite show or a new AEW pay-per-view. I suspect they're going to announce whatever the January pay-per-view is going to be for them pretty soon, because we're about to be in December. We kind of got the World's End announcement like at the beginning of November, end of October. So I would suspect that we're going to get the announcement for whatever the January show is, or if there's going to be a January show in a bit.
Yeah, because that's gonna be a weird spot, because they kept already mentioning Revolution.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they're gonna do when it comes to that. Unless if I think if you do that, I think it'll be fine. Like if you just don't put a pay-per-view. But I do also know the network. That's what the networks want. So they have to appease the networks as well. So something that's out of anybody's hands until they make that decision.
We got Eric Isaac who says MJF the 2023 MVP of AEW. I'm not even sure I can say that. Like, this is why, like, when MJF said I'm the greatest AEW world champion of all time, I kind of gave him the name. Like, are you?
I still say Omega.
I still got Omega and Moxley ahead of him.
Yeah,
I think that even the length being longer, his title reign is on the same level of Hangman Adam Page, where I feel like there's a major like flaw to it. Like the Hangman Adam Page, he had excellent title matches. He was a top baby face through and through, how he played his character out, but he never felt like the main character. That was the major flaw of his title reign. And with MJF, the heel part of his title reign, it felt like towards the end of him being a heel, he was going for low-hanging fruit and the different origin stories. It felt like you were running out of ideas as a heel. And then when he's transitioned into a babyface, it was really good for like the first month. But now he's going through an identity crisis of he doesn't know if he's Jewish Rock, if he's Yodel Kid John Cena, if he's Stone Cold Max Freeman. Like, he doesn't know from week to week if he's that yet. Like, I want him to figure out this part and end his title reign strong. I think that he can hold the title until probably Revolution, but I do understand the people that are like, nah, it's run its course. It needs to end immediately. And I understand the argument for Samoa Joe to be the guy to end it.
Yeah, I understand it. I just don't think that's where they're gonna go because they're still focused more on this double story. So whatever is gonna happen, I think how he's gonna lose the title, they're gonna have to get involved. Like that's gonna have to be like the end goal when it comes to that. That's why I don't see it being Samoa Joe yet. I think if they wouldn't have had that attached to it, the double storyline, I think Samoa Joe probably wins at World's End. But because they still have that, I don't think it's gonna happen for a while.
I could see the devil costing MJF, and that be the reason why Joe beats him.
Yeah, it could be. It's just a matter of like, because even with Joe, if he wins, is he gonna be a transitional or like what's gonna be the deal with that? Because I wouldn't want that for Joe. But that's just me speaking as a fan.
Yeah,
it's just more than what the company wants.
I feel you on that. Yeah, Kenny Omega, man, he was the belt collector. He just felt like the main character, and like his actions dictated a lot of different stuff. We got the Eddie Kingston babyface turn. We got the Young Bucks heel turn, and the Young Bucks great tag team title run when they were heels. We got Christian Cage as a main eventer, and we got that first big matchup on Rampage. We got so many different things, and then of course the Hangman saga and Hangman eventually dethroning Omega. We got the Omega Bryan during that whole reign. Like, yeah, it's hard pressed. I think it's gonna be hard pressed for AEW to match that reign. Like, even though MJF has passed it in length, he has not passed the quality of that reign yet.
Yeah, the quality, and then like you said, Omega was a fucking man for like he was a top star for like what 3 different companies basically, because he had their top titles, and also yeah, like I do agree with that though. Like it's really hard just because again with Omega there were so many moving parts that worked, and him just being him having those multiple titles for different companies, that's kind of elevated that as well.
That's true. And honestly, that's why I'm kind of like debating him as MVP, even MJF, because I feel like Christian Cage has been the best character by far in AEW and in wrestling. I feel like Swerve Strickland's second half of the year has just been so on fire. Like, and then you have someone like a Kenny Omega who kind of has had like a second half that's been a little bit quiet, but his first half of the year was amazing. So like MJF, probably when you put him up against everybody, when you look at like promos, you look at the ratings he gets or the merch he sells and his matches, yeah, he'll probably be the MVP out of everybody in AEW, but I don't think he has even a strong argument for Wrestler of the Year. I feel like Will Ospreay has a stronger argument for that. Bryan Danielson, who wasn't even here the full year, I think that he from AEW has a bigger argument for Wrestler of the Year.
Yeah, it's true. I agree.
We got Power Driver Finisher saying I got into AEW during Omega's run, so I'm not too informed on that part, but I can remember him having different belts across promotions, and I actually anticipated watching him. He says, with MJF, it's just for the story. I don't really care about his matches. So if the story ain't good, then it falls apart for me. That's actually a great point. That's a great point to to get into the stuff because like MJF, that's what it's been. Like, you know, the Bryan feud, that was polarizing to a lot of people. Some people liked it, some people didn't. If Bryan was in
I
the
loved
ring,
it.
it seemed like everybody liked it. When
I
MJF
loved
was
it.
talking, it seemed like everybody was so about it. I
I
enjoyed it. I
yeah.
enjoyed it myself too.
I enjoyed it because with that feud, it played strongly with both guys' um, parts. Danielson is he's a workhorse. He's a wrestler. So to earn his spot, of course, he's gonna out wrestle everybody to get there. MJF, the good promo guy, he had to be the guy to talk because Danielson. We know Danielson could be great. Like
And
he's
Danielson had
gotten
the best
better.
promo in that
Yeah,
feud,
yeah,
the
yeah,
go
yeah.
home promo.
And and that's what it needed to be. I think if Danielson just kept talking instead of like wrestling, I think that promo wouldn't have been as good because it already would have lost that mystique behind it. So for Danielson just to cut that big promo, that one big promo towards the end, I think it made him look better than it would have like every week if he would have cut a promo. I think it would have diluted that.
And then the four pillars feud, I think no one can deny that that was up and down at best. At best, you could describe that as up and
Great
down.
concept, but I think what the problem is that when you have a bunch of guys who don't know how to talk, that's kind of what you get.
Yeah. And then the Cole program, that was fantastic until All In. Like that from when it started in June to All In, it was brilliantly done. And then pivoting and going with them as a team and going with it as a babyface versus babyface act. I think that's one of the best programs MJF has done as champion. And like I said, I think that it's kind of stalled off because his whole character has had to be put on a treadmill until Cole is back, pretty much. So that's why I think that he's having this confusing time of trying to figure out. And like we've seen with the Jay White program, that's a little bit polarizing as well. So he just has too many polarizing programs. So I get the point that Power Driver Finisher is making about the story kind of doesn't get you into the matches all the time.
Yeah.
But I think most of his matches has delivered, especially on pay-per-view.
No, they've been
But
great. Like I can't really complain about his matches because I think that they've been, for the most part, they've been MJF matches. They've been great. I think he's again, he's not going to do over the top stuff, but he doesn't need to, you know. And it's been great. It's been working great for him.
But his opponent, it seems, did not come out of this whole situation as good as one would hope, as we have a certain report from PW Torch, which reports that breaking down the Continental Classic participants ahead of Wednesday's AEW Dynamite, Wade Keller of PW Torch shared some insight into White's thoughts on the MJF feud, reporting White wasn't thrilled based on what I've been told, how things went with the build and the match against MJF. So he might be motivated to shine in this tournament. Keller notes that winning the tournament could reshape how fans perceive him and that White is still among the top choices for Tony Khan to build around as a top star in his company for years to come. So, what do you think about this report of Jay White being upset or not thrilled with how everything went down at AEW Full Gear and with the feud with MJF overall? Do you believe that? And if so, what do you think it comes from?
This one's tough because yeah, that one's pretty tough because I could kind of see why he would be upset about it. I could see where there's parts he was not happy with. At the same time, I could see a position where maybe he doesn't really mind just because this was probably the most significant thing he started doing once he started forming his group again. That's when he was on TV more. He started being used more. So I think one way I could see where he was upset with certain things, but on the other hand, he's been used more. Like this was the feud that's been getting him used more and got him into the tournament. If that feud doesn't happen, I don't even think he's in the tournament.
That is true. Like I said, I think that if if they didn't do all the ambulance stuff, I think that we would really be talking about how much Jay White got out of this feud, because he was put in the top heel position and he fit like a glove in it. And like I said it on Twitter, I'll say it here. I thought the match was great. And I thought that he proved why he is going to be a main eventer for AEW for years to come. So, I mean, if I'm gonna take any of this as truth, I'm gonna take it with a grain of salt, regardless.
Yeah.
But if I'm gonna accept it as any of truth, I would think that the booking of Full Gear itself, the show overall heading into the main event, is where the point of contention is at for Jay White, more than the feud or the build up. Maybe with the feud and the build up, he wasn't happy with how many different distractions or how many different threads MJF had, where it became obvious MJF was going to still have the title because he had all these other feuds to do after the fact. Maybe it's that part of the build he didn't like. So I could see where there is some stuff that he wasn't thrilled about.
Yeah, like I could see it. It's just kind of, I don't know. It's just a little, I don't want to say hard to believe, but it's just Jay White is not that kind of person. Like even when he was with New Japan, like he's not really that kind of person until it gets to that boiling point. I don't think this is a boiling point yet. I mean, he hasn't even been in the company for a year. Like, he hasn't been officially with the company for a year. So I mean, there's still things that could come up. There's still, he's still a top guy, and they've recognized that. They know what he could do. The end result with Full Gear, I think what would have been similar to is, remember when he cut that crazy promo in New Japan, like after he lost his world title shot, and that kind of put him over the top. I think that kind of would have been similar here. I think it would have been a situation where he lost, but then everyone's praising him. Where everyone's like, "Yo, like this is legit. He could really, he's one of their top stars now, and you don't have to worry about him not winning title yet." I think that would have helped him a lot more. But again, the booking itself, it wasn't his fault. I mean, it still made him look strong, but I could see where he could be upset.
Yeah. They still tried their best to protect him, but yeah, they could have done more to make him look strong coming out of this. Like Annika saying Jay White is still a top 5 heel, but it's like, man, we just got him to the spot of importance, and Full Gear did feel like a step back. We also got Annika following up and saying, like, don't make it so hard to prove to fans why Jay White is on top. Good point. We got Power Driver Finisher saying week in, week out, we, myself included, were just complaining about how it was a stole your belt feud. Yeah, like they focused too much on that part. Like, I don't know why that even had to be a thing. I understand it was the concept of, oh, they're taking everything away from MJF, but you didn't even take the next logical step, was for Juice to beat him for the ring, where you're really taking everything away from him. Jay White steals the belt. Then Juice wins the ring. So then he doesn't have all his stuff that he usually wins the title with. He usually retains the title with. Like, that would have made sense for the story, but they didn't even want to go all the way with that. So it just made the whole stole your belt feud of the whole thing just unnecessary and useless.
Yeah.
Sad. They didn't need all that. Senior Nerd saying, I mean, would Jay White rather lose to Dom Mysterio for the North American Championship in the WWE than losing to MJF in a main event spot? That's what I've been on. That's my other side of thinking, Senior Nerd, is like, my dude, he lost in the main event of a pay-per-view to the world champion who needed a referee bump, his injured friend, and a Dynamite Diamond ring to beat him. Like, we really need to start putting things in perspective. This is what I have trouble with AEW fans. It's their perception of Shida is a transitional champion, despite ignoring the fact she's the longest reigning champion and the most cumulative days and the first ever 3-time champion. You want to focus on the fact that her last 2 title defenses was transitional. I don't think that's a proper way to say Sheeta's transitional champion when she's had 3 reigns and one of them was the longest reign. Also, I don't think it's possible to say Jay White was buried when he was in the main event of a pay-per-view.
But then also with Sheeta in her 3rd reign, she had two televised main events. She had 2 televised main event matches. So I mean, that's That's pretty prominent for the women. Like that doesn't usually happen, and it was back to back from what I remember. It was like back to back weeks where she was the main event. Like, I mean, I'm just calling it like it is.
All right, but talking about Jay White, who came into the company in April, we had someone else from New Japan come in at full gear, like we mentioned earlier, Will Ospreay, the newest member of the AEW roster. And Will Ospreay's status in the United Empire is secure despite signing with AEW. Per Great Okan, Ospreay is a key member of the United Empire stable, which is mostly associated with NJPW and has worked in other companies as well. With his having signed with AEW, where he will move full time in March, some questions were left to as his status with United Empire, and Great Okan was asked about it by Tokyo Sports, where he said, "Yo, that's a level of gibberish that would make Prince Shatuka ask twice. How many years have you been a professional wrestling reporter? Cut your stomach or lose a finger. Where is the danger? Where is the danger? Ospreay will continue to be in New Japan and not leave the United Empire. All you have to do is to increase the membership of the United Empire and show your authority over there. The people of the Empire need not worry at all. Ospreay is here to stay." Fightful Select reports that Will Ospreay signed a multi-year deal with AEW, which is over 3 years. The deal was made well before Ospreay's time with NJPW was up, as he is still under contract there until the end of January. Ospreay told NJPW he wasn't signing a new deal with them, and they gave their blessing for him to go to AEW. It was the working relationship between both companies that allowed the deal to happen, and Ospreay will still work select dates for NJPW whilst under AEW contracts, similar to Jon Moxley, Kenny Omega, FTR, and others have done in the past. Contract negotiations began in earnest in the early fall, and AEW was optimistic they would get him. He previously said he wanted to stay in the UK, but later said that he was willing to explore other options, such as a move to the US. He will be able to stay in the United Kingdom as part of his new deal. And Ospreay arrived just before the pay-per-view began, and the contract was finalized and signed as of that morning. It was teased before the deal was made, and it was teased before the deal was made. Meanwhile, WWE did indeed have interest in Ospreay and were in contact with his agent, Barry Bloom, in recent weeks to see if he was interested. It's believed the talks weren't a secret in the company, as they were trying to see what kind of schedule or relocation might happen. WWE sources noted that they hadn't had any official word of Ospreay signing, but most guessed he was going to be going to AEW. And by Friday night at Collision, talent in AEW were openly talking about it, and Impact was also interested in Ospreay, but it's unknown how far those talks got. And Bodyslam.net reported that Ospreay apparently received a very lucrative deal, one of the biggest deals from TNA that they have ever offered anybody, but he still chose to go with AEW. What do you think about the Ospreay signing? The fact that New Japan worked with AEW to get the job done, since Ospreay let them know he wasn't going to re-sign with them. I think that it was smart of New Japan to kind of work him to a promotion where they could still use him. I think that was a brilliant move by New Japan Pro Wrestling.
And I think that's the main reason why they did it, because one, you know, the main thing that you also want to do, like if there's a guy that you still want to keep, you still want to use in some kind of capacity, is you leave on good terms. So as long as you leave on good terms, there's the structure there, then everything will work out. Now, I think if he would have for WWE, I think they probably would have just burned his bridge, to be honest with you. For some reason, that's just how I see it, because they wouldn't have been able to use him. But the fact that they have a working relationship with a company that he's already familiar with, it make the most sense when it comes to that. In regards to TNA, I mean, to say that they offered him like one of the biggest deals, I mean, you would have to, for a company like that, you would have to. But I understand why he picked AEW. There's more leverage there, more money, bigger crowds meaning more money in your pocket. That's just where it comes down to. It would have been a significant signing for TNA, At the
Yeah.
same time, I think Will's career itself would have been pretty stagnant there, just because Will Ospreay is already big time. So it was either WWE or AEW. I think it just had to be one of those two.
Yeah, I think so too, because he's too big of a star at this point. It had to be one of the top two promotions. We got Annika who says, "I'm glad Osprey is in AEW." She says, "I'm Triple H's lawyer, but even I don't see what Triple H would have done with him on an important scale." Yeah, like that's what I said with both Osprey and MJF. I think they made the right decision. If the MJF report is true, I think he made the right decision in staying with AEW, because I didn't see where he would be higher or gain more or be higher in that company than he is in AEW. And it's the same thing with Osprey. I think Osprey has the potential to be the number one guy in All Elite Wrestling. And I don't know if WWE would have allowed him to be the number one guy in their company.
Yeah, and I think it kind of would have been similar to what they've been doing with Jade. Like, they're presenting Jade as a big signing, but they haven't done nothing with her. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I think that would have been similar. They would have treated it like a big deal, but that's about it. I think at that moment they would have treated it the same way they've been doing it with Jade. But I just don't see where he would fit in right now. Just because right now the top goers in the company is what you have: Judgment Day, you have Cody. When Roman is there, still Roman, still Roman, even when he's not there. Like,
Exactly.
His presence is still felt. Then you have Jade, who's had an incredible year, main eventing a bunch of pay-per-views. So it's like, again, they would have treated MJF like a big signing. I just don't think we're in the pecking order where he would go from like number 10 to like number 3 or 2. You know what I mean? Like, that would have been a more difficult situation compared to like Cody. It made sense for Cody because they needed a top babyface. And Cody, because of his brand, his name already, instant credibility, but also because he was already there. So people already were familiar with him. With MJF, a lot of the casual WWE fans are not going to recognize him. They're not going to know if he's there or not. So, I mean, they don't, unless, again, that's what they've been doing with Jade. They're presenting Jade as a big signing because a lot of fans are not familiar with her, but she hasn't been seen since.
And it's like even if you compare it to someone like AJ Styles coming over to MJF, or Will Ospreay coming over to WWE, it took AJ really having 4 fucking matches with Chris Jericho in a 2-month span before they even thought about pushing him.
Yeah. And he got that big push because of that Cena match, but didn't happen until SummerSlam.
No, he got the big push because of his work with Jericho. Because that's what he said.
Yeah.
He said in documentaries that whole program was what Vince was looked at, and was like, all right, you got that dog in you. I'm gonna give you that opportunity against Roman. And then the Roman one was what got him the Cena feud.
Oh, all right. No, because I was thinking about like the title match itself, like him beating Cena at SummerSlam. That's what got him the title match. So within 10 months, he became a world champion. But at the same time, their formula was a lot different that time than what it is now. You know what I mean? Like, I think right now it would be a harder spot just because WWE, they're on this hot streak when it comes to a lot of things. You could pick apart like some of the stuff that they still do wrong. At the same time, again, it's a harder ladder to climb there right at the moment, just because, again, there's so many good people that are like hot right now. You even have Gunther. Gunther is presented better than their heavyweight champion.
He's not even a guy I would consider in that top echelon of a main eventer. He's like in the next up position. Like, literally, that's what I said about the whole Punk situation. That they don't need Punk. Like we got Will Chisholm saying, more history than I do. When was the last time WWE been this top heavy? Attitude Era. That's literally the last time that they've been this top heavy. Attitude Era, when you had Austin, Rock, Triple H, Mankind, Undertaker, Kane, Big Show. Did I say Angle? I didn't say Angle yet. Benoit, Jericho, Shane McMahon would be considered a main eventer at that time. Vince was wrestling regularly at that time. I'm already at 12, and that's with the part-timers. And then you could put teams like the Hardys in the main event. You could put Edge and Christian in the main event. You could put the Dudleys in the main event. Like, yo, they were deep. They were like 16, 20 deep in the Attitude Era, but they're like 13, 14 deep now. When you got Roman, you got all the members or former members of the Bloodline, you got Sammy and KO, you got all of the Judgment Day, which is 3 top guys, and now they got a freaking fanboy on the team too. And they got then that I'm not even counting the women. I already got 10 deep, and I didn't even count the women of Rhea, Becky, Bianca, Charlotte, Damage Control. That name, like, that got us up to 9 already. Like, yo, this like, it's probably more top heavy than the Attitude Era because now women are top stars.
Yeah, and that's where it'll be a harder thing for MJF because again, he'll be presented as a top signing, but a lot of fans are not familiar with him, so we don't even know how he would have been used or whatnot. So that would have been, I think that would have hurt his stock more going to WWE than it would if he stays with AEW, which I think he already did. But he's in a better spot with AEW either way. He's already a top star. He's already their top champion. I mean, why try to distribute that now? Especially if Tony Khan can match the money that WWE would have matched anyway. So I mean, you keep the guy, you keep him. That's what you go for.
Yeah. We got Frantic World said then we got JBL, Booker T, and Eddie the leader. I mean, Eddie was a natural progression, and the fans just got behind him. But don't ever, when I name people like Stone Cold, The Rock, Undertaker, all these top stars, and then you say, and then we got JBL and Booker T, you need to realize that's like me naming all the top stars of AEW. Like I say, MJF, Kenny Omega, Bryan Danielson, Will Ospreay, and then you say, and then we got Dustin Rhodes. That's basically what you just did, Frantic World. Basically what you just did. Because JBL and Booker T would have never been top guys in WWE if Austin didn't get hurt, if The Rock didn't go to Hollywood, if Undertaker wasn't slowing down, if Mankind didn't retire, if Kurt Angle didn't have neck injuries, if Chris Benoit wasn't a maniac. It like there's so many different things that like JBL and Booker T, y'all need to realize. Y'all need to stop mentioning them in the same breath as and people like I'm not even putting Eddie, the types of Eddie, Benoit, Angle in that upper echelon of the Triple H, Austin, Rock types, but Booker T and JBL are not even on that level of Kurt Angle, Jericho, Benoit. They're on the third tier of we are only a main eventer because everybody else left.
Yeah, and JBL, with his kind of run. Like, I did like the whole, like, Wall Street stuff. But with him, it was either you loved it or you hated it, to be honest. Like, it was with JBL, it was like you either, like, really loved it, you loved what he was doing because it was something different, or you just really hated it because people felt like he was kind of boring. You know, like, I don't think he was a bad wrestler. I don't think he was a bad worker. But in comparison, I mean, we have The Rock in Austin. You can compare that to JBL, like, with his title run, which he constantly has to mention. Nobody talks about it, but he's the one that has to constantly mention. So it's not exactly a great thing. You know what I mean? He's more remembered for beating Eddie and then losing to Cena. That's all he's really more remembered for.
Okay. And no, Xavier Steve, I did not forget HBK in the Attitude Era, because go back, he was there for 6 months. Like he was there for 6 months, and his back gets hurt. Like, that's it. He's there for the first year of the Attitude Era, but the Attitude Era is at least 5 years. So no, I didn't forget him. I more think of Michaels when I think of top guys of an era. I'm gonna say Michaels' name first in like new generation before I say him in Attitude Era. Attitude Era, like he would be behind a bunch of the guys that I already mentioned.
Yeah, like when the splits actually mattered and he was Raw, he was the top, like he was there like workhorse. He was like what Seth Rollins is. But I mean, Shawn Michaels HBK is HBK. You can't really top that, you know what I mean?
Facts. We got Timeless Heartbreaking. Absolutely. With Will Ospreay being signed by AEW, a lot of the questions were now aimed at the other free agent that people thought would be this blockbuster signing, Mercedes Moné. She is still out of action due to an ankle injury, and Tony Khan commented on the possibility of her joining AEW following Full Gear. At the post-media scrum, he was asked about Moné and praised the former IWGP Women's Champion, noting he would love to have her appear in the company. He said she was at AEW All In, and it was great having her as part of the show. I have a ton of respect for Mercedes Moné. We would love to have her anytime in AEW, and she has had a great experience with our partner, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and she would be a great addition to AEW anytime, and we would always love to have her here. I have a ton of respect for her and have had great conversations with her, and I think the world of her. Monet has said she expects to be back in the ring in 2024. So I'll ask you, Josh, do we see Mercedes Moné have a match in All Elite Wrestling in 2024?
I'm gonna say yes.
I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say yes, and I'll put a percentage on it. I am 75% sure that, 75% sure that that Mercedes Moné will have a match in AEW in 2024.
Yeah, because I know a lot of people they were feeding into like all the Bailey stuff because Bailey like posted something. I just don't see her coming back to WWE just because the way she left was so bad, and especially when you leave a situation where your contract was literally bought out, I just don't see that relationship being repaired, at least not for another couple of years. And I know how much she loves Triple H. Triple H loves, he loves Mercedes, but at the same time, she knows her worth. And as long as she knows her worth, she's enjoying what she's doing. She absolutely loves Japan. So I just don't see her being in a position where she goes back to WWE anytime soon. I'm talking about years.
I think that would be the worst thing for her career.
Yeah, it is. I 100% agree. It's like the way she was treated, and then even the negotiations coming back, they were like, "No, you're not Becky Lynch level, like when it comes to salary," which is, I think, kind of ludicrous because it was like when you see her run with WWE, when it came to mainstream, she was on a lot of stuff. She was on a lot of like platforms, a lot of, she was being presented well. WWE never even promoted like her stuff. They never promoted like her appearances on The Mandalorian. They never did none of that stuff. In AEW, if she was to do all that stuff, they'll present her like that, like because they know how important she is. So I just don't see her going into the situation where, again, it was so bad, everything was just left a bad taste in her mouth. Just to go back, that would be so bad too. Like even on
wouldn't be the best look. Yeah,
it would be so bad because it was like, damn, you literally. And then also after that reaction with that stupid fan at Comic-Con, like, oh, I heard you left because of creative. The way you saw her react, it wasn't so much because of what fans said, but you could see all that shit still bothers her because she has yet to tell her story about what really happened. So unless we actually really know for how she feels, I just don't see her coming back to WWE. I do see her going to AEW in some kind of capacity. If she could do both, she's going to do both because I think she absolutely loves Japan. Like if you really see how she is, she looks like a completely brand new person with that experience.
I agree. I definitely agree there. Got Xavier saying if he was there with DX was made in October 1997. Shawn Michaels gets injured in January 1998. It literally was 2 months. It literally wasn't that long, bro. I bet you know. Attitude Era was 5 years, and Michaels was only there for one of the 5 years. I cannot put him in the same breath as the guys that were there for all 5 years.
And also when DX was created, they were still doing like those small ballrooms, like they were still doing Hammerstein. So when they transitioned over to like these bigger arenas, DX was already made by that time. So yeah, it was a short. He wasn't in the Attitude Era for that long. It was more Triple H. Like when Triple H became the leader, that was Attitude Era. Like that.
Exactly. Attitude Era was full swing when Triple H takes the leadership because that's after Austin beats Michaels for the title.
Yep, and he just took the bull by the horns. He was just like, I'm gonna do and fucking delivered. I think that version of DX was better than the three original members.
Yeah. We got Annika who says AEW is doing well with the women now, but they got to get Athena back on the main roster before I believe they'll do right by Mercedes Moné. And that's totally understandable way to think about it, because I think that, yeah, that's the one that I do agree with her. AEW is doing better with the women right now, but they got to get Athena back on TV because she's like the best thing that's not being seen by AEW fans.
Yeah. I agree with that.
We got Belle who says, I know it's probably not going to happen. And the only reason I say this is because of how AEW's women is booked. But I would prefer to see her with Trinity in Impact for a little while. I know it won't happen. I think that you are not acknowledging the fact that AEW is doing better with the women. Like, I understand that historically AEW has not done well with booking women and regularly do not book the women well, but this whole statement kind of reads as you're not acknowledging the fact that they are doing well with the women right now. And they have two very over acts in the women's division in Timeless Toni Storm and Julia Hart that are not only over with the fans live in attendance, they're drawing ratings. And overall, women's wrestling is drawing big ratings across wrestling in general, which would give more of an incentive to get someone like Mercedes Moné and book the women properly. Saying, AEW doesn't book the women well, so I don't want a woman to go there. That's kind of a bad way to think about it, in my opinion.
And her price tag too might be kind of heavy because with Trinity, again, she was a WWE star, but she's not what Sasha Banks is. She wasn't what Sasha Banks was in WWE. So it's one of those things too that we could say Impact. I think that would be cool to see them as reunite in some kind of capacity. Just wouldn't see it happening in Impact just because of the money that's involved.
Yeah, I agree with that. We also got here Jay saying Timeless Tony Sherman versus Hollywood Holly J is happening. Oh, okay. I mean, that okay. Frantic Girl saying, yeah, I agree, because Athena in that tag match on ROH with Ronda was so good. Athena needs to get back on Dynamite or Collision.
Use on Collision.
Yeah.
Use her on Collision. At least some kind of capacity. Get her back on TV. Get her back on TV. Might as well do that.
And we got Belle who says it has to be on a consistent basis, not a month or two before I acknowledge that. Well, I mean, if you don't acknowledge it, then it's just gonna go away again. like if you acknowledge the fact, yeah, it's good, yeah, I like this, and yeah, you should do it more. That gives Tony Khan and AEW more incentive to do it more. If you say, I'm not going to acknowledge or say anything about it until it's more than a month or two, then he's just going to be like, okay, I guess the people don't like it, so I'm going to stop doing it.
Yeah, that's part of the problem too. Is like if you want this division to be consistent or whatever the case may be, you gotta kind of show that same energy when it's good than when it's bad. If you're just focusing how bad it's been and now looking at how it's been good now, that's part of the problem too, because now your standards are different when it comes to that. So if you're not really looking at it now because it's good, then that's kind of doing that to yourself, because now you're expecting some kind of level of consistency.
It's basically what we call a self-fulfilling prophecy. You're saying, oh, AEW doesn't book the women well, so when they do book the women well and it's only been 2 months, I'm not going to acknowledge it or pay attention to it, so they're going to stop doing it because you're not paying attention to it. You're not acknowledging it. That's how self-fulfilling prophecies work. Finally, AEW Full Gear, the success of the show, it was believed to be a sellout with an estimate of 12,000 to 13,000 fans in attendance. Tony Khan later said there were over 13,000 people there, and the show had well over 100,000 pay-per-view buys. The Wrestling Observer newsletter had more details. Streaming pay-per-view was up about 15% or more from WrestleDream, which did a little over 110 110,000 buys total, possibly over 20%. Overall numbers look to be up 33.3% from Wrestle Dream and down 17% from Forbidden Door. When late buys come in, which is typically strong for AEW, the show will likely end up with 122,000 to 140,000 pay-per-view buys. And it was noted that the picture will be clearer next week when more data is available after the holiday. Of those who brought Full Gear, 46.8% also brought Wrestle Dream, and the attendance was over 13,000 fans with 12,000 paid. The live gate was 900,000, and the audience included many WBD executives, Hollywood people, and possible sponsors. And while it was announced as sold out, it was actually just shy of hitting that achievement. Either way, it's AEW's biggest U.S. crowd of the year and third biggest behind All In and Forbidden Door. It's also the largest crowd for Full Gear ever, and the theater showings were up 8% from Wrestle Dream. So overall, good business for AEW Full Gear, and we will see if they can continue that momentum come at the end of December for Wrestle Dream. But they rebounded coming off of Full Gear.
World's End. World's End.
World's End. Excuse me. World's End. World's End on this.
New York. You should. It has to.
I think it's going to be a good showing, and they always do good in Long Island. So we'll see how it does with World's End at the end of December. But moving on from Full Gear, they had AEW Dynamite this week. The show viewership has not been announced as of yet because of the holiday. But in my opinion, Josh, it had one of the best AEW promo segments of the year as Christian Cage rechristened Luchasaurus to Kill Switch, and he rechristened Nick Wayne to the Prodigy before ripping Mama Wayne, aka Shayna Wayne, which was said for the first time. We finally got her first name, for being a waitress and making Nick Wayne look bad. Kill Switch would step up in front of Shayna before Christian pushed him into Shayna. He then threatened and looked like he was going to give a concerto to Shayna Wayne until Adam Copeland came out and made the save, but took it a little too far by giving Nick Wayne the concerto right in front of his mom and his father, Christian Cage, this heinous rated R superstar. God damn you. Also, the Continental Classic kicked off with Swerve Strickland defeating Jay Lethal in a good opening bout. You also had Switchblade Jay White defeated Roosh in a hell of a matchup, an absolute banger, with Roosh beating the hell out of Switchblade just a few days after Full Gear, but Jay White pulled out the victory to get 3 points. And the final Continental Classic opening matchup saw Jon Moxley defeat Mark Briscoe in an excellent main event that looked very close to Mark Briscoe pulling out the upset before Jon Moxley pulled out the win. We got my favorite timeless segment yet, as Timeless Tony Storm accepted the award for AEW Women's World Champion. Then Sky Blue interrupted her and went on to beat Anna Jay and Ruby Soho, who was distracted with Cool Hand Ange in a three-way matchup. Meanwhile, Orange Cassidy, Hook, and Katsuyori Shibata were greeted or had at ringside a returning Danhausen as they defeated not JAS, Daddy Magic, Cool Hand Ange, and Jack Hager in a fun trios matchup. And finally, Samoa Joe almost yoked up Maxwell Jacob Freeman MJF for not being a man of his word before Adam Cole convinced him to accept his challenge for the AEW World Championship. MJF wanted the match right there and now, but Samoa Joe said absolutely not before ripping MJF to shreds by taking his title match for AEW World's End on December 30th in Long Island and saying until then, MJF is his property. And the thing about his property is people don't touch his property. But the main event for World's End is official, Joe versus MJF 2. What did you think about this week's Dynamite? What was the highlight of the show? What did you think about Joe and MJF being set up for the next pay-per-view main event?
The show was great. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was well paced. The Continental Classic, I liked the aspect of it. No interference, no they can't use like weapons or whatever the case may be, or any kind of outside stuff. I did like how Jay White still he fucking still cheated, but he did like such a sick way.
He got one of the best
Like,
heat of the night with that low blow and how he won.
Yeah, because Roosh has been a hot streak. I was saying it on Wednesday. I was like, yo, everybody loves him. And I was like, you started to see why he's been used more because of the crowd reaction. That's the hot hand. He's one of the hot hands in the company right now. But I do like the feel of it. There was one thing that when I was watching your review yesterday, which I didn't look at it myself this way, which I was like, oh, that was a good point that you guys made, was the end result to Mox versus Briscoe, because I did feel like Mox was going to win just because I didn't see him losing 2 times in a row. Yeah. So I think that's why I didn't mind the end result too much. But then you guys made some good points of like, if you want like this kind of G1 Classic kind of feel, you're going to have to go with these kind of wins that are like big upsets you don't see coming. That's what the G1 is about too. Like you see like these big upsets, and I think that if you want like this tournament to be credible, as in like you're getting points and stuff like that, that's what you need to do. Like you need to have these kind of surprise wins, and I think that would have been a good spot for it to happen. Mark getting the win over Mox. It's just that I kind of knew what was going to happen just because I didn't see Mox losing 2 matches in a row.
Yeah, I just thought that, you can play it off of his mind is still on Orange Cassidy, or if Orange Cassidy kind of has a crack in Jon Moxley's psyche, and that led to Mark Briscoe getting the win here. There was a couple of ways they could have played it off. I just felt like that would have been like the perfect way to end off the first night of the Continental Classic, is with a big upset. And I feel like Mark Briscoe will get a big upset in this tournament. It just felt like Moxley was the perfect guy for him to do that against.
Yeah, no, I agree. Which I like when you guys mentioned that, I was like, yo, I didn't even think about it that way. So like I do agree with that aspect. Like because it's not like the typical, hey, you're advanced to this round. It's a point system. So you could kind of get away with stuff like that with these big upset wins. And you never know. Like it could make these guys look good. Like, it could do more for them even after the tournament.
Very true. Very true. Yeah, because like if Mox wins, that win for Mark Briscoe leads to the rematch where he could like have a shot at the Triple Crown after he wins. So yeah, there was a couple of different ways they could have went about it there. Power Driver finisher saying Christian is a family man. Edge is definitely a heel. Yes, he murdered a kid right in front of his mom.
It's funny. I brought that shit up. Like I was like, yo, like what he did was like heel. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, he did it in front of his mom. I know I compared
I already said this though. Annika saying, imagine if Mama Way joins Christian and they redo the kiss Christian gave Trish after betraying Jericho. I don't think they need to do all that, but I feel the Copeland concerto in front of Shayna is leading to Shayna leaving her fucking Denny shift behind and joining the patriarchy. I am here for it.
I can see that happening. I think that would make the most sense when it comes to that. But I compared it to like what Edge did. I mean, to what Adam did. I compared it to Man of Steel, where like fucking General Zod killing everybody, and then that's when Superman finally showed up. I was like, at that point, it don't matter. Everybody's dead. And I was like, you went there to save his mom, and then you fucking concerto her son. Like what?
And it's very easily to explain, like, oh, why would Shayna join up with Christian? Christian has said a lot of things. He's never hurt Nick Wayne. He never hurt Nick Wayne. He's always protecting Nick Wayne. He loves Nick Wayne. So, and if you know mothers, you can say or do anything to them. But if you say or do something to their child, that's when they really react. So that's why I think Shayna will be the difference maker of why Christian beats Adam Copeland at World's End.
Nate's comment.
Yes, Nate saying, what's good, fam? I told you that Orange would end up being he who retains, Sid. Yes, he was. He was. I denied it because I went for him at All Out and he let me down. But y'all were right. Y'all were right to go with Orange Cassidy there. We got Annika saying, we forget Nick was about to hit his mother with a chair. No, he handed the gun to the guy that wanted to kill his mother. He handed him the gun. He wasn't going to use the gun. He handed the gun to the guy that would use it. M Sud saying, my prediction, Edge calls out Shayna to apologize for giving Sun a beating, and she kicks him in the balls. I think that'd be too direct. You got to wait for the big reveal that Shayna's a part of the patriarchy for the matchup with Christian. And then we also got here, we got Big Man Doy says, I can see Nick Swan join with Handmaid Tale as vibes. What?
What?
Y'all are wild. Where do you think this whole Christian rechristening ranks as far as the AEW promos this year? It's honestly, maybe it's recency bias. It might be my favorite of the year. I feel like everybody got something. I felt like this was Shayna Wayne's best performance that she's been on camera so far. I thought Nick Wayne was great in like breaking character. It also reminded me of like the Uzi bloodline segment because Nick Wayne could not keep a straight face. Somebody called for the man because he was breaking character the entire time. The whole Luchasaurus bit where they really made Luchasaurus into the sympathetic figure that you could hear the fans for months now. They're going to probably be chanting Luchasaurus at him, but now he's referred to as Killswitch. And then Christian just felt like the biggest heel in the fucking world.
It was great. As in like, it's really hard to tell just because Christian has so many great segments that it's like, which one do you really put on top? My personal favorite is still the whole thing with his daughter, where he basically like, got his daughter kicked out. I think that's probably my favorite one. No, but the one on Wednesday was freaking hilarious just because I didn't know it was going to go like that direction. So it was kind of like he made it work. Like, I think if anybody else was put in that situation, I think the segment kind of would have fallen apart because it kind of would have been like a little too gimmicky. Yeah. But the way he pulled it off, it was like, damn, Christian, you're a dick. You know what I mean?
Yo, that felt like a real TV show, like a real drama you were watching before your eyes play out with that rechristening. It was so great, so great.
And I saw that this girl responded to the Prodigy name, Raquel, because
Roxanne, yeah.
And then she wrote a tweet and then she ended up deleting it. I saw that. That was hilarious. I was like, what was the point of that?
What was the point? You should have kept rocking with it. Could have kept that tweet up. But talking about the Continental Classic that kicked off on Dynamite, we got a lot of the information for the show on Wednesday ahead of AEW Dynamite for the tournament, the Continental Classic. AEW Continental Classic selection special was at 1 p.m. on Wednesday, and it revealed the blocks. The name of the blocks is the Blue League and the Gold League. The Blue League will consist of Blackpool Combat member Bryan Danielson, the Ring of Honor and NJPW Strong Openweight Champion Eddie Kingston, Andrade El Idolo, member of House of Black Brody King, member of the Blackpool Combat Club Claudio Castagnoli, and Daniel Garcia. Over in the Gold League, you got former three-time AEW World Champion Jon Moxley, Swerve Strickland, Switchblade Jay White, Roosh, Mark Briscoe, and two-time Ring of Honor World Champion Jay Lethal. The rules to the tournament were revealed as well. It's going to be a 20-minute time limit, 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw. Everyone, seconds, teammates, banned from ringside. The round-robin tournament kicked off on Dynamite this week. It will continue tonight on Collision, which takes place from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and then it will go basically Dynamite Collision, basically week after week until we get to the group finals, which will be on the final Dynamite ahead of World's End on December 27th, which will be the top 2 point getters in the Gold League and the Blue League will face off in the final 4, and the winners of those matches will face off in the tournament finals at World's End in Long Island on December 30th. And finally, the Continental Classic winner will get the Triple Crown Championship, which will be the new AEW Continental Championship given to the winner of the Continental Classic, as well as Eddie Kingston's Ring of Honor World and New Japan Strong Openweight Championships to make the first AEW Triple Crown. What do you think about the rules of the tournament, the field? What do you think about, is there any kind of omission of anybody you would have had in this tournament that they didn't put in?
I think all the guys that they have, I think is a good. I think they're good picks just because this could be a good segue for a lot of them. You know, they don't necessarily need to be a world champion right now, and I think that's why it's a great fit for Swerve. Just because I know everyone is like calling for him to be a world champion right now, this is a good segue for him because he'll have 3 belts. So it was like, fuck it, right? You go with that. As for the rules, I like the rules. I like the feel of it because they kind of, when I was watching it on Wednesday, like the first match, I was like, I kind of like it. You just focus on the wrestling, and also it kind of what I liked about like the first match. For example, Jay Lethal, we kind of got away from like the gimmicky stuff he's been doing. He just focused on the wrestling. That's what I like about it. That's the aspect I like about it as well. And I think that's what made the other 2 matches great too. Just to keep it just straight up wrestling, because I know too, part of the reason that why they're doing it like this is because they want to show the networks like the wrestling aspect of their shows. That kind of matters too on a wrestling show, and I think that's from what I heard, right? That they're doing that because of they basically want to prove to the network like this is as important too than like talking segments, entertainment stuff like that. I think that's part of the reason too.
Yeah, that makes sense. We got M said, he says, why isn't Miro in this? Because this is probably how the conversation went, M said. Tony Khan goes to Miro and he's like, hey, Miro, I want you to be in the Continental Classic. And Miro says, am I going to win? And Tony Khan says, no, you're actually going to lose 3 of your 5 matches because we need you to lose to Bryan Danielson, Eddie Kingston, and Claudio Castagnoli. And Miro says, that doesn't work for me, brother. And that's why he's not in the tournament. Like, it's pretty easy to tell you why a bunch of these people aren't in the tournament. And Miro is that him losing more than once. It doesn't work for him.
Would have been more damage. I think he's in a better spot right now. Just being in a feud with his wife, basically. I think that would right now, if he would have been losing too much, I think that would be more damaging than anything for Miro.
He said, turns out Miro's god is Hogan.
I mean, as long as he ain't racist.
As long as he ain't that. As previously reported, only 4 of the 6 wrestlers in the Blue League are wrestling tonight on Collision. It's going to be Eddie Kingston versus Brody King and Claudio Castagnoli versus Daniel Garcia. Unlike on Dynamite, there's not 3 matches. There's only 2 matches for tonight's Blue League competition in the Continental Classic on Collision. And the reason for that is the American Dragon Bryan Danielson. The Wrestling Observer newsletter reported this week that as of last week, Danielson was waiting on clearance to fly, and so that's why he wasn't booked. The match will likely happen on the December 2nd episode of Collision, so already some confusion. Hopefully Bryan is going to wrestle in this tournament. Hopefully they didn't book him and he's not cleared to wrestle if he's not cleared to fly. I don't know.
Yeah, that'll be pretty weird and stupid. Like you put the guy in the match knowing that he's not cleared.
Wouldn't put it past AEW though at this point.
I wouldn't. That's the problem right there. But I do feel like they put him because I think they feel confident that he's gonna get cleared. They probably didn't think it was as bad as they said. He could wear that mask. He could wear like that, like that LeBron.
The Rip Hamilton.
Yeah, more Rip than LeBron because LeBron looked just like Batman when he had his.
True. A new report has details on AEW's creative plans for the Young Bucks following their loss at AEW Full Gear. The team lost to Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega at the show, and in doing so, they lost their AEW World Tag Team title opportunity. They threw a fit after the match on camera, and Brandi Cutler later said that the Young Bucks were taking time away from wrestling on social media. Fightful Select reports that the plan is to have the Bucks go full heel official, something that's been teased on AEW TV with their attitude change. The report notes that Brandon Cutler is tentatively set to continue with them and turn heel as well as at least one other personality will turn with them. Cutler's tweet was intended to further the turn, and he will be doing much of the speaking for the duo on TV and on social media from here on out. According to those the site has spoken to, the different format of being the elite is also playing into the heel turn. The Bucks have a fine relationship with AEW and signed new long-term deals recently. As reported, there was a brief moment last week when they were mistakenly removed as EVPs on AEW's roster page, but it was fixed quickly. The Wrestling Observer newsletter reports that the team will be playing into their negativity, same as they did years ago with their Killing the Business and Spot Monkey merchandise. This is why they trademarked the KTB Wrestling and Super Dick Party earlier this week. Although KTB Wrestling is not an AEW related trademark at this time, the current plans for their group with Cutler is to include others. Colt Cabana's name was pitched, and that is not a definitive plan at this point. They will take time away and come back as heels with an angle that has major impact, and there's no word on when they will come back at this time. Also noted in the Wrestling Observer newsletter is that the Young Bucks have put an end to the Being the Elite series. They said earlier this week on social media that the Being the Elite series they were finishing it up, which many thought it would be a part of this current heel turn. But Meltzer said in the Wrestling Observer newsletter that they are done with the Being the Elite and that it's going to be completely finished up after this heel turn. So I mean, I'm kind of blown away by the fact that after all these years being the elite, like you have 100,000 subscribers on YouTube, you better do something with that channel or like give it to some other talent or something.
Actually over 1,000. They have over 500,000 subscribers.
That's insane.
I know the direction. Yeah, they've been doing like more clips. They've been using Colt Cabana a lot more too. So they've been doing like more, like they have been putting out content. It's just not the weekly Monday episodes that they usually do. I've noticed that for a while myself as well.
Yeah, they have been slowing it down, and it has been featuring more of like other talent for quite some time now. And you could tell that the Young Bucks have stopped caring as much, but I didn't expect it to be scrapped completely. I was like very surprised by this report. Big Man Dog saying maybe Jack Perry can join this new faction. Hey, Jack Perry with the patriarchy or with the Super Dick Party. I'm with it. Super Dick Party. Let's do it. Final note from AEW this week. Sammy Guevara has been out of action after suffering a concussion last month at AEW Wrestle Dream. Guevara has said that he wasn't sure that he would be cleared, although Diego Del Sol recently said that it was imminent. The Wrestling Observer newsletter reports that Guevara has been cleared to return to the ring and should be back very soon. The reason he has not returned after getting cleared was due to his wife, Tay Mello, who is set to give birth to their child any day now. So the concussion came at a good time because he could start his paternity leave early.
Or they probably say, hey, you already kind of used it, so we're going to need you back ASAP.
We're gonna need you back. The baby you just put on your first diaper and like already you get called back to work. That's crazy. We got in the chat saying Sammy equaled the devil. Please no. Not Sammy.
That would be
not
so
devil.
underwhelming. That would be completely underwhelming. I would not want to do that. That would be such a terrible spot.
Please don't do that. Not Jungle Boy, not Sammy. Just that's the only rules with the devil.
I would be fine if it was Jungle Boy, if he was one of the members, like if he was like one of like the lackeys, but not the lead, not the main person. Like no, it wouldn't make any. I mean, it's like what real purpose would you have to that? It wouldn't really mean anything.
None at all. ROH TV on Honor Club. We're gonna mention it here with the other Tony Khan owned promotions. ROH on Honor Club had a big match this week as the show featured the Ring of Honor debut of former WWE Raw and SmackDown Women's Champion and UFC Hall of Famer Ronda Rousey as she teamed with Marina Shafir to defeat Ring of Honor Women's World Champion Athena and Billy Starks in a very good main event. You also had Katsuyori Shibata beat Trent Beretta in a rock-solid bout to retain the Ring of Honor Pure Championship. Willow Nightingale beat Trisha Dora and Kiera Hogan and Diamante in a four-corner survival matchup to get some momentum in the women's division. And meanwhile, Wheeler Yuta beat Lee Moriarty in a solid Pure Rules matchup where he will now go on to face Shibata for the Pure Championship on tonight's Rampage. News coming out of Ring of Honor, of course, has to do with Ronda Rousey, who made her debut on the Friday taping ahead of Full Gear in Los Angeles, like we talked about last week. And Tony Khan has confirmed she has not signed with AEW or Ring of Honor. He said during the post-media scrum after Full Gear, she has not signed, but we had a great conversation. It came about because there was some unfinished business. They had that match, and I thought it would be great for our fans to settle it in the ring. At the Wrestling Revolver show, they had a match, and I had spoken to them, and I thought it would be great to have a match and build some interest, and then have the story come to Ring of Honor, where Athena is the Ring of Honor Women's Champion. Billy Starks is her minion, and there is a lot of interest in that. He continued, I thought it would be great to see that tag team match and against two of the horsewomen, Marina and Ronda Rousey. And Ronda was happy to come here, and she was great. The crowd was really excited to see her, and it was a great match. We would love to have her back sometime. It was really fun. Her being out here, she's a local and lives nearby, and that helped make it possible. Anytime it's convenient, we would love to have her back. The Wrestling Observer newsletter reports that the match is believed to be a one-off for Rousey, who wanted to team with Shafir before going off to have another child. While it was teased that Rousey could challenge Athena for the Ring of Honor Women's World Championship, this won't happen anytime soon, if at all. Khan previously said he was open to working with Rousey again, but unless things change, she appears to have no interest in working full-time again. No one knew that Rousey would appear for Ring of Honor until she was in the dressing room on the day of the show. It's unknown why it was ROH and not AEW. It could have been that that's what Rousey wanted, or that it was Khan's idea since Athena and Starks are in Ring of Honor. The match was booked for Revolver for Rousey, as Rousey wanted that matchup. And since it used talent from Ring of Honor and ROH, Tony Khan had to approve it. At first, he didn't want his talent doing a match in Los Angeles, so close to 3 AEW shows in the market. It's believed Jon Moxley helped to make the match happen, as he's close to Sami Callihan, who runs Revolver, and high on Marina Shafir. Khan eventually agreed, but requested the Revolver match ended in DQ so he could have the rematch at Ring of Honor, and with the finish of Rousey winning. Both the Revolver match and the Ring of Honor match were praised backstage. So, lot to detach there. I mean, Jon Moxley, he's working magic backstage, man. Sami Callihan, the best thing he did was have Jon Moxley start working with him closely for Revolver, because he got the biggest match, the biggest women's match he could ever do at Revolver because of Moxley. And all he had to do was a non-finish to set up a Ring of Honor match.
That was
what
great.
do you think about all these notes from Rousey appearing on Ring of Honor?
I mean, I was surprised as fuck because I did hear she was backstage. I just thought she was backstage just to visit, because it was in her town, so it wasn't like, that's not really a big shocker, right? Because you hear people go backstage all the time anywhere. But for her to actually appear and wrestle, I was way more surprised with that. Just because I'm still curious, like what's Ronda's, like, what's her goal with it? Like, what's her aspect? Because the way she left WWE was very quiet. So for her to even do these kind of shows is a little surprising to me. I'm not saying she's not, she's beneath it. I think it's a good thing for her, especially if she wants to continue in some capacity wrestling. I think this is her way of trying to get like some respect in the industry, which I just think, when it comes to Ronda and her wrestling like career, I think it kind of feels like people try to gatekeep too much, if that makes any sense. Like I feel like when it comes to Ronda, I think she gets an unfair stick just because of her UFC run. her background. Oh, she's not a wrestler. She's never done indie shows. So who is she to take anybody's spot? At the same time, Ronda Rousey is a freaking. She's an Olympian. She's a gold medalist Olympian. You know, and she's worked hard her whole entire life. UFC wrestling or not, I mean, there's a lot of people who've gotten roads, like they've gotten to wrestling on different ways. I don't think she's worked least than anybody. She just had a different path, and I think that's been the unfair thing when it comes to Ronda.
Yeah, I think it's more or less that this was a situation where we don't know why Ronda Rousey was the way she was during her second run, but it was very clear that she had a lack of motivation, lack of inspiration to really put in the effort or have as much fun as she had during her first run, where you'd be hard pressed to find anyone who found wrestling and were that good at it in their first match at WrestleMania 34 when she teamed with Kurt Angle against Stephanie McMahon and Triple H. And then the next year when she had matches with Charlotte Flair, had the best matches with Nia Jax of her entire fucking career. Great matches with Sasha Banks. Great matches. Like, she had great matches with so many different women because she was motivated. She was working with some of the best women at the same time. But I felt a little bit of that vibe. Year one Ronda in the Revolver matchup and in the Ring of Honor match with Athena and Billy Starks.
Yeah, and I think that's what she needs. I think she doesn't have to be full time. You know, she could still be like that, kind of like that. How they use like kind of like Sting, like kind of like part time ish kind of thing. She doesn't. You could use her in and out. She doesn't need to have the title. She doesn't need to be in those big prominent matches. But her name alone will get you some eyes. But then also, what people forget about WWE is that all women's pay-per-view doesn't happen without Ronda Rousey. People could
they don't main event WrestleMania 35 without Ronda Rousey. I can't. People would tell me all the time, "Oh, if it wasn't for Becky Lynch getting hot, they would have never." No, Ronda versus Charlotte was always the plan. Becky was the one that was the add-on. She got hot, so they had to add her on. That's a fact. That's a fact. She got so hot that they had to add her on, but the plan was always Ronda and Charlotte. From WrestleMania 34, I was talking about it on this show that Ronda and Charlotte was going to happen at WrestleMania 35. Like, that's like the biggest revisionist history topic ever. Was it Becky got hot, or was it Ronda coming in that got them the main event at WrestleMania? It was Ronda coming in. Like, no question.
Because Ronda got them that Evolution pay-per-view. Like, if it wasn't for Ronda, that pay-per-view never happens. And then you kind of saw after she got off the spotlight, they have not done that pay-per-view ever since. And that was actually a great pay-per-view for them. That was actually a great event for them. And they have not done this.
And CPZ, that's why I kind of made that statement the way I did, because we don't know. We've heard so many different things of she didn't like the creative. She wanted to come back and verse Becky. Becky didn't want to verse her. She didn't want to verse Charlotte. And we saw that she didn't want to verse Charlotte by the match that they had at WrestleMania. Like, she did, like, they wanted her to be in the title picture. She wanted a team with Shayna. Like, there was so many conflicting reports about Ronda that there could have been a multitude of reasons of why she just did not care and wasn't motivated in that second run. We got Nate who says during Latifah's first run, not only did they protect her, but they had her wrestle the best woman on that roster. During her second run, she had to wrestle a lower tier and wasn't strong enough to carry them. Yeah, when you're wrestling like 3 pay-per-views against Liv Morgan,
it's like at that point, it's like why do I give a fuck? I mean, no disrespect to Liv Morgan.
Disrespect to Liv Morgan, but you went from facing the 4 horsewomen to versing Liv Morgan. So
yeah, that's people could say what they want, like, oh, you know, she's improved, but at the same time, it's Liv Morgan. Like,
it's Liv Morgan, still Liv Morgan.
You see how they treated her title run. I mean,
still Liv Morgan, guys. Moving on to WWE, guys. Keep sounding off in the live chat. We love to interact with all of you. Once again, though, we need those super chat donations, guys. It helps out the channel so much.
I just
And
want to
like
point
I
out
always say,
Bella's comment about Ronda. We're not here to try to change your mind on anything. We're just telling you the facts of how Ronda was a star, and this is why she was treated the way she was in WWE her first run, like because she's a prominent name, like, and even before UFC, she had a significant run in Strikeforce, so it wasn't like only UFC. She was already a big name. It's just that once the UFC got involved, of course, that's when she became more worldwide. But she was always a prominent name in MMA.
yeah, like if you don't want to hear the facts about Ronda Rousey, then okay, that's fine. But I'm not trying to change anybody's mind. I'm just stating facts. I am very factual when it comes to Ronda Rousey, unlike a lot of other wrestling YouTuber. I literally got yelled at by somebody and called an AEW fan and an AEW freakazoid because I liked how Ronda looked during the ROH thing, and he tried to say, "Oh, y'all AEW fans were shitting on Ronda before. Now y'all saying she looked good." I was like, dude, I am literally the biggest Ronda Rousey mark on wrestling YouTube. How are you grouping me with these people? And like we got into a whole back and forth. And then he like did his research and looked at my YouTube channel and like probably put in Ronda and saw the many times I backed up Ronda and was like, "You actually are correct. I confused
And
you
for
with
the most
other
part, I think a lot of
YouTubers."
us, and I think for a lot of us on the channel itself, we kind of defend Ronda a lot. I defend Ronda, you defend Ronda, Romeo defends Ronda. So it's not like I get like the whole hatred aspect. To me, I just don't get it. Just because I'm like again, she her path was differently, but again, she still worked hard to get to where she was at. So it's not like she had an easy road. It's just again, her path was different. You know, that's why to me, I never gotten the hate. I don't get it.
And she's the first black woman to main event WrestleMania. Why are we doing this to Ronda Latifa Rousey? I'm with you. I'm with you, brother Nate. I'm with you, brother Nate. Ronda Latifa Rousey. Let's move on to WWE. Like I said before, keep sounding off in the live chat. Send those super chat donations. We've been talking for nearly 2 hours. Not one super chat. Come on, y'all. WWE SmackDown, you had last night. The show featured the past between Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair, causing tension on Team Bianca ahead of War Games as Becky and Charlotte lost to Damage Control's Bayley and Asuka in a good main event matchup. Meanwhile, you had another War Games team, the Judgment Day, Finn Balor and Damian Priest, defeated the Street Profits to retain the undisputed WWE Tag Team Championships. You also had more tag team action on the show as LA Knight and Kevin Owens interrupted the Grayson Waller effect, with Austin Theory playing the role of Kevin Owens as Knight and Owens beat A-Town Down Under in a solid tag team bout. Santos Escobar interrupted Carlitos, addressing his betrayal of the LWO, which led to a big brawl with Escobar laying out Carlito by injuring his arm. This led to Carlito being medically disqualified for tonight's Survivor Series and replaced by Dragon Lee, who made the save for him when he was attacked by Santos backstage. What do you think about the last minute change to Dragon Lee versus Santos Escobar at Survivor Series? And what did you think about the story-long thread of Becky and Charlotte? Which I like the fact that they kept that thread going at the end. Because I thought it was just going to be for this show. They were going to win at the end and they'd be good going into Survivor Series. But they kept the thread going with the way they ended things. So I enjoyed that part of it.
Oh, I mean, I didn't watch SmackDown, so I have no idea what that part is going. Escobar and Lee, I think that's a fun matchup. Hopefully those guys get time. But it's probably gonna be cut short just because of the War Games match. That's gonna get the most time. So I mean, we'll see what happens. But I like to fill in. I'm kind of glad it's not Carlito versus Escobar yet. You can just go with the working guy. You go with Dragon Lee.
But this Carlito run, man, it's been kind of trash.
Kinda.
Kinda. I'm trying to be nice here.
That shit, yeah, because that shit, honestly, the way he was brought back, it was like that generic ass music. It was kind of, it's not the same. I get why they would want to sign him back. I'm like, but if this is what you're doing with him, you shouldn't have never brought him back. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't know, like, especially Carlito, the way that he was back then, how he didn't like creative. There's no possible way he likes this shit right now. There's no fucking way. I mean, I think he understands he's not gonna win a major title, but it's just the way he's being used. Remember, this was his biggest gripe with Dirty Creative, and he comes back and it's been the same shit. Or probably even worse.
They brought him back to join the LWO and then immediately broke up the LWO upon him returning.
Yeah, because of him. Like, he's been the main focus. Like, oh, like your vote, you know, like, I don't know. I don't like it. It's I do like the Dragon Lee Escobar matchup. I think that's gonna be a fun matchup.
And Dragon Lee's been great. He's been great as of late. So I know this match is gonna deliver. So
yeah. So the thing with Becky and Charlotte, what's that about? Like,
basically it's just their past issues. Bailey was trying to say like that they always been talking trash about each other and that they're gonna implode at War Games, and they basically just played it out throughout the night. Like, they had a little argument backstage because Charlotte went to make sure that Becky could wrestle on the show since she's a Raw wrestler, and Becky got upset about that because she was like, why would you think that I wouldn't ask about that? And then Becky left, so Bianca had to go talk to her and be like, you know, me and you didn't get along before, so maybe you should, you know, try to mend things the way you did with us. You should do that with Charlotte. And then Shotzi went to Charlotte and was like, you know, when I got my hair cut, I was down and out when Damage Control cut my hair, but you gave me some words. Those words meant a lot to me, and just a couple of words can really fix things between you and Becky.
Didn't Shotzi cut her own hair?
Well, Damage Control cut it first, and then she finished.
She did the rest. Oh, all right. Because I'm like, what is she talking about? She's the one that shaved her whole damn head. She just like went further out. Like, I was like, that's you.
Like, I'm pretty sure that's you. You did this. You did this.
So it's a 5-on-5 for the women, I guess, like a war and
it's a 4-on-4 for the women in War Games.
Oh, but I don't think it's a War Games match. I think it's a regular match, right?
No, it's a War Games. It's War Games.
It's a War Games.
Yeah.
You see, like that. I didn't even fucking know that. Look at that. I didn't even fucking know that.
He said, I didn't even fucking know what's going on here.
What the fuck? I know about the men's, but I didn't know. I'm like, all right, cool, I guess.
Yeah, it's true story, Annika. He was like that they are not glossing over that 2 Survivor Series ago, these chicks hated each other. Yeah, they threw down titles because of each other, because of their hatred. Yeah. But with Survivor Series tonight, Josh, you know the person that everybody is talking about. We heard some chants last night at SmackDown in Chicago. It's time for the Punked and the Restless Survivor Series edition. The Wrestling Observer newsletter reports that WWE's stance on CM Punk has not changed, and he is not expected to be part of Survivor Series this weekend. Those close to the situation have denied that Punk is coming in. In fact, the reason that Randy Orton was named as the final member of the babyface team in the men's War Games matchup was to prevent Punk chants. If they kept the spot a surprise, fans would expect Punk. The current creative regime in WWE is not attempting to go against the fans in like Vince McMahon sometimes would in the past. And it was also noted that it's impossible, however unlikely, that Punk is a well-kept secret. If that were the case, last night's SmackDown or tonight's Survivor Series would be the time to bring him back. And WWE is reportedly not opposed to bringing him in spite of how negatively others feel about him if they thought that it would garner positive fan response. So if the fans want it, they will bring back CM Punk. Do you think the fans overall want CM Punk back in WWE?
Deep down, yeah. I think they want Punk back. I think they want Punk back in any capacity, to be honest with you. It's either WWE or AEW or even TNA. I think he'll benefit a lot more from TNA at this moment because they'll give him whatever he wants in that aspect. But yeah, deep down they do, because look, you see the reaction, right? People could say what they want about CM Punk, about like, oh, he did, he's a piece of shit, he's an asshole, he cares about himself. All those things are true, right? That's not what I'm going against. But the fact that people want to act like they don't want him, or whatever the case may be, I mean, you see the reaction. There's even the people on Twitter that they're trying to like blame the journalists. Oh, if this doesn't happen, we're gonna blame you guys for this, right? We've seen it. At the same time, it's like, all right, if you're gonna blame them for not getting Punk back, that means you wanted Punk back to begin with, right? So your argument is kind of that's even a contradicting aspect of wanting Punk back or not wanting Punk back. Like, you're upset if he doesn't show up, you'll be upset. But yet you didn't want him. So which one is it? That's why I think,
they can never
fans want him
decide.
back. Fans want him back. They could say what they want. They want him back.
I just don't think WWE wants him back.
They don't need
or
to.
Needs him back. Yeah.
They don't need to. And then even if you bring him back, it's more like a show off thing. Like, oh yeah, we brought him back. You see, this is what we did. We brought him back. But it's like, in what aspect of things? Again, we know how much of a big name he is. He still is. It's just, if you really don't need to focus on what you guys have. And I think WWE is strong enough right now that they don't need him. They don't.
They just don't. Like, and we talked to Nick Houseman on the Survivor Series preview. Nick Houseman, aka CM Punk's diary, and he said no. He said Punk is not. He said that Punk is waiting by the phone. He'll wait for the call. He thinks that they will call, but they haven't called as of yet.
And then also, like, the other aspect of it too is that fans are trying to blame Punk for like the trolling or the teasing and all that stuff. It's like, no, if you're gonna blame anybody, blame the media, because they're the ones that have been pushing it more. Punk is gonna be Punk. He's gonna play along with it. There's nothing wrong with that. Cena does that shit all the time. Cena does it all the time. When there's
Cena gonna post a CM Punk picture on his Instagram at like 9 p.m. tonight.
Yeah, like he does it all the time. So I'm like, I don't see anything wrong with how CM Punk goes about it. He's just going about it because his name is in the fucking news. So how do you not expect him to not react to that? He's gonna do what he's gonna do, because I know people made a big deal out of that. Kang the Conqueror and Dr. Doom like joining forces, and everyone that knows the story to that. So they're like, oh my God, he's willing to put his beef aside to join WWE. And I was like, no, he's just trolling because he's getting the attention. His name is out there. He's just doing it.
We got a couple of super chat donations. See, this is what I told the team all the time. All you got to do is ask the people or tell them you're broke, and they start giving it back. We appreciate y'all. Thank you so much. Christopher Kidd, one of our great Patreon backers, one of our big supporters usually here for Tru Heel Heat. He says, Ronda Rousey, best name on the internet. Man, Nate Milton, you get the invite. We got to get you on before the end of the year, because you've been the creator of some of the best nicknames we've ever come up with here. And Ronda Rousey is right up there with Cody Devontae Rose.
It's
right up. It's right up there. It's got to be right up there, right?
And I think the names he chooses, like, they're definitely like black names. So that's what makes it even like more funny.
You never confuse that with not black names. Yes. Latifah and Devontae. Will Chisholm, thank you so much. One of our other great people that are always supporting us on multiple different streams. Will Chisholm saying Punk is at for Survivor Series, and at the same time, he's the main man with the devil's mask in AEW. Fans are stupid. Points were made. That is a valid point. Fans are pretty stupid if you believe both of these things to be true, and yet there are some fans that do. We also got another super chat donation from Christopher Kidd. Thank you so much, Christopher Kidd, once again. He said nobody needs Punk, including Punk. Just stay away. And I asked Nick Houseman, and I told Nick Houseman what was told to me by some people within WWE was they have said they would not be surprised in 2 years if Tony Khan calls CM Punk before WWE does.
I can see it happening. I think, but again, all that it comes down to when it comes to the situation with AEW is Punk really just needs to take real accountability for his actions and just, he needs to mend those fences. Without doing that, you can't come back. It's just a morale aspect of things. And I just think with Punk, we know how difficult he could be. And I think a lot of stuff that happened with AEW the last year or so when it comes to Punk, I think some of it is unfair too on his end. Like, I get him defending himself, right? I don't think there's nothing wrong with defending yourself. It's how you go about it. That's what's wrong about everything. But I do think the stuff that came out, I think it is unfair because you're putting stuff out there that you're forcing the guy to defend himself, right? But the guy that you're doing that to, you know how he reacts. So it's like, it's one of those where I think it was, it was a situation where some part I think it wasn't really it was kind of unfair to Punk, but because of his reputation, a lot of people look over that. So I get it. I get both sides of the coin when it comes to that.
Yeah, that's true. We got C Pizzy asking, do we know why Carlito is not gonna wrestle this match? It is pretty strange that he hasn't wrestled. Not like he's only wrestled one singles match since returning in May.
If it's weird, it's probably because this is probably not the match that they really wanted. I think,
or they want to prolong this matchup because they want to prolong it because Ray's not coming back before like Royal Rumble, so they got to prolong this feud.
I think that's part of it. I think that's part of the reason. But I mean, it's a good. I mean, you putting Dragon Lee. I mean, that's a good. Hey, I like that matchup better. It's more appealing.
Hey, I agree there. That is a good point. That is a good point. And then we got one final super chat donation to highlight here. Thank you so much. One of the good brothers, Ches Nasty, who I think just recently joined us, either for the Full Gear review was the first time I saw his name, or one of the reviews that we've done this week. And he's been supporting us ever since then. Thank you so much. Being a part of the great community we've built here. He has a super chat donation which says, great show as always, fellas. I predict Punk may come through at Royal Rumble as an entrant. I know, though, he'd get a huge pop tonight, but the Rumble is normally the time WWE brings out the surprises. Ches, we're on the same page because I always said the best spot for CM Punk to come back to WWE is the Royal Rumble because it's a streamline to WrestleMania. They bring you in for the Rumble. They know exactly how they're going to use you 9 times out of 10 for WrestleMania. If they bring you back in November, God knows what the fuck would happen if CM Punk comes back in November and has to work his first big matchup at WrestleMania 6 months later. He could get in an argument backstage. He could jump into the crowd and break his foot again. Like, he is so, like, there are so many different elements to this CM Punk situation. I did not see the point of bringing him back in November when his first big matchup wouldn't be until WrestleMania.
Yeah, and I think the only reason why you'll bring him back is because of the Chicago crowd tonight. With Royal Rumble, there's a lot of stuff you could kind of cover up with that, but then even if he doesn't win, it's kind of like meh anyway. It's kind of like wishy-washy when it comes to that. That would be the best spot because then you kind of know what you're doing. You put him in the Rumble. Hey, you're gonna get the first night main event. That's basically the best thing they're gonna do for Punk.
Basically, yeah, you could get that first night main event. Roman don't want that. We got Wrestling Observer newsletter reports that Roman Reigns is next scheduled to wrestle at the WWE Royal Rumble event in January. He will defend the undisputed WWE Universal title. At this point, LA Knight is not expected to be the opponent, but there are some in the company pushing for Knight. But Triple H has another plan at this time. If you're being asked on November 25th, 2023, who do you see facing Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble?
Not LA Knight.
You have to name somebody.
I can't. I'm
gonna say AJ Styles.
Yeah, that would be a good spot. AJ will lose again to Roman because he's never beaten his ass, but that's a good filler name because whoever's facing Roman is not winning. Like, so I think AJ will be a good matchup. I just wouldn't put LA Knight in that situation because it's like, bro, you're gonna give the man 2 titles for the world title. That's just at that point, that means he ain't never gonna win. So I would not want to put LA Knight in that situation.
I feel you on that one as well. We got CM Punk, as the person that Big Man does would have.
That'll be worse. That'll be worse.
Final note from SmackDown. Axiom made his SmackDown debut on last week's show. A new report has a few more details on his appearance. PW Insider reports that the decision was made at the last minute to bring Axiom on the show last week, and it was noted that as of today, he is externally still listed on the NXT roster. He posted on Twitter on Saturday to thank SmackDown GM Nick Aldis as well as Dragon Lee for the matchup. And during Sunday's episode of Wrestling Observer Radio, Dave Meltzer reported that there are plans for Dragon Lee to have a program with Rey Mysterio at some point in WWE. It's believed that the program will happen sooner rather than later. Mysterio previously endorsed Lee as the next great luchador, and that might play a role in the program. Mysterio is currently out with an injury, and it's still believed he will be feuding with Santos Escobar when he returns, and it remains to be seen if Lee gets involved with that, but he is already involved now that he's replacing Carlito at Survivor Series. When do you see the Lee versus Rey Mysterio match going down? I can see that WrestleMania 41.
I could see it. You said WrestleMania 41?
Because I think WrestleMania 40 is Mysterio and Santos.
Yeah, I could. I guess I could see it in 41, but it also depends on Ray's window. Because I know Ray is kind of close to calling it a career. But I still think when it comes to Mysterio, I think his last matchup will still be against Dom. He puts over Dom, you know. I think that's how he ends his career. So it's just a matter of the length where Ray goes from here. But I do see Escobar. That makes the most sense. Escobar and Ray at WrestleMania. Lee and Mysterio, maybe like SummerSlam or something. I don't know. Make it something prominent, but again, it's just right. They're going with the angle. I just don't see that angle going over a year. You know what I mean? I wish it would. It should.
I can see them being a tag team first, and then eventually, you know,
Rey
Mysterio tag team partners always turn on them.
That means you're the problem, Ray.
You're the problem, Ray.
You've been the problem. Batista turn your back on you. Actually, no, you kind of turn your back first on Batista. Batista turned on you. Was tired of your shit. Escobar was tired of your shit. I think you're the problem, Ray. It's unfortunate. I think you're a nice guy, but I think you're the problem. I think it's because you're too fucking nice.
CPZ saying, I think Roman defends the title in the Rumble match. There's a lot of cool stories you can tell. They've already done that. Why would you do it again? It was a bad idea then. It was a bad idea in 2016. It would be a horrible idea in 2024.
Yeah, and I don't see part-time Roman working the whole Royal Rumble match. I just don't see. You could take him out, but then that's still a lot of time he'll have to contribute. I don't see that happening because of that.
Yeah, and to make him defend the title in the Rumble match, that means that he's a babyface because the heel authority figure is making him defend in a matchup where he has a 0.3% of defending it. Like, nah. There's a couple of reasons why that don't make sense, man.
yeah, and the reason why, like when Lesnar did it, Lesnar didn't put his title on the line. He was just a participant in the Rumble, which eventually lost it to the guy who won it. So I mean,
yeah. And yeah, it's also true. Big Man Dawes is saying it would ruin the Rumble too because Roman is winning.
You wouldn't want to do that. You handicap the Rumble like that. I wouldn't want them to do a situation like that
at all.
You're better off having either Cody win it again or somebody else,
Gunther.
and then
Gunther.
Yeah. So or Gunther is like, and he could face Seth, right? That's the I would probably go for Seth.
Yep.
You know, so it's like, I don't know, like, you know what I mean? I wouldn't want to do that.
Yeah. We had Raw this week. The show was the go home ahead of Survivor Series. The show featured Drew McIntyre beating Jey Uso in a solid main event to win the War Games advantage for Team Judgment Day at Survivor Series tonight. You also had Becky Lynch defeated Xia Li in a good hard-hitting affair. You also had Nia Jax beat Raquel Rodriguez. Shinsuke Nakamura beat Chad Gable in a rock solid bout as well. You had The Miz and Gunta had a very compelling promo segment going face to face with Gunta repeatedly calling Miz Mike. That was great stuff. And you also had Natalya and Tegan Nox won a women's four-way over Candice LeRae, and Indy Hartwell, Ivy Nile, and Maxine Dupree, and Katana Chance and Kaden Carter to become the number one contenders for the WWE Women's Tag Team Championships. I thought it was a good show on Monday. A lot of women featured, and once again, Triple H just been just showing off with how many women he's been featuring on Raw since he took full control over from Vince.
It's a good thing.
Always a good thing. I think it was like 28 women featured on this week's show. It's like getting yeah, this guy. I was like, he's just going ham. He's just trying to break his own records at this point. Some news coming off of Raw, because on last week's show they had an ad for the Barmageddon show with Nikki Garcia, aka Nikki Bella, but she was noticeably absent in an on-air WWE plug for the show. She recently commented on the omission. She, of course, is best known as Nikki Bella from her time in WWE, and Michael Cole plugged that the Black Sheldon and Carson Daly starring, but not mentioning Garcia, who serves as his host. She said that in response, it's sad. Like, there's obviously a lot of things I could say about it, but I think more than anything, it's disappointing. I worked there for 16 years and I helped pave the way for them. Not only that, they've always been family to me. And no matter what, walking away from me, it wasn't malice. I'm at that point in my life. I wanted to do things without hearing the word no. And it was just strictly business. Maybe there were some personal things that had happened over the years that also pushed me towards that. But I think more than anything, it's disappointing because I don't see it happening with the men. She continued, for some reason, with the women who are outspoken, and we've seen this with the women in the past, they just want to ban us. I think it's sad because we all look at it as a family. And so, okay, they don't want to say my name. That's fine. Barmageddon gets a shout out, and so did Blake Sheldon. And so that makes me happy. So many people at WWE will always be family to me. I communicate with so many of them. The WWE universe will always be family to me, as well as my Bella army. So I'm just so appreciative for all of you and all of us that can still have those memories. What did you think about WWE omitting Nikki Garcia? I mean, after they had that whole leaving the company, I figured that something like this would happen.
It's not surprising. This is usually how they handle certain things. And I think part of it too is, I know it was who? Was he Nikki or Brie who was very critical? Something happened.
Nikki for Raw 30 this year in January when they were left off.
Yeah, she was like very critical on that, but I think other things too. I know she was very vocal on certain things that they were doing. And once they were kind of like just like, all right, we're ending our contracts. It's not really surprising behavior. It's just there's some people who they're going to treat well. There's some people who are not. I mean, fortunately, the way that things ended between them, maybe there's more that they're not going to speak about, which they don't have to speak about. Any personal stuff they don't have to speak about. I think it goes deeper than just that. That's just my assumption.
I wouldn't be surprised. Wouldn't be surprised either. We got Will Chisholm with another super chat donation. Thank you so much, Will Chisholm, as always, our big supporter here, saying Ray and Sting must be the two wrestlers who get turned on the most in wrestling history. Yes, those are the two that I know the most for getting turned on. Sting, whether it's Ric Flair, whether it's Lex Luger, some person from the Four Horsemen.
What also with Sting is more, with Sting too, some of his turns haven't been because of shit that he was doing or like being gullible. Like he knew, hey, I can't trust this person. Then he gets turned on anyway. Because remember like that thing in Halloween Havoc? Yeah. Where he didn't trust Rick and then ended up backfiring. He was like, you and he went
getting turned anyway. Turned on anyway.
Turned anyway. Yeah. So I'm like, his is more like that, where Ray is more like, it's more people that he's actually like he fucks with, and then they turn on him.
Yeah, Ray, you're the problem. WWE NXT this week. The show did 622,000 viewers. I wanted to give it up to our producer with the you can look but you can't plug. That was a great tagline. Great tagline, producer. NXT this week, the show featured Noam Dar beating Chad Gable in a fabulous opener to retain the NXT Heritage Cup. You also had Josh Briggs pull off the big upset, defeating Carmelo Hayes thanks to a distraction from Lexis King, while Blair Davenport beat Thea Hale for Briggs and Davenport to advance to the men's and women's Iron Survivor Challenge at Deadline, respectively. And then finally, Lyra Valkyria defeated Xia Li in a good main event to retain the NXT Women's Championship. And in a big new signing for WWE, apparently, if reports are to be believed, PW Insider reports that former NWA Women's Tag Team Champion Maddie Renkowski is believed to have signed with a WWE NXT developmental deal. She was reportedly at the WWE PC last week. Besides NWA, Renkowski has also previously appeared in AEW on multiple occasions and also wrestled for Mission Pro Wrestling. So congratulations if this is true. I know Maddie has been kind of like one of the young stars on the independent scene that a couple of people have been talking about. Any thoughts on Maddie Renkowski going to WWE?
I think it'll be a good move for her. I know she's been around for a while. And then also she has been in talks with WWE a few times. I know she did have a tryout months ago. So it wasn't like so it's kind of like not really news, you could say, for her involvement with WWE. She did have a tryout. And I know they've been trying to work on something. So if she signed finally, it's like, hey, it's good. It's a good move for her. I think somewhere like NXT could benefit her just to get, some more reps from your name out there. And I think this is kind of a good stepping stone when it comes to just being somewhere like prominent. So I think it's a good.
Yeah, I think it's a good move for her, and she's someone that can develop and take some time to get better there for a while. And I think she has a bit of charisma as well.
She's a great heel, yeah. She's a great heel. I'll give her that. So she kind of has that down packed. It's just with NXT, there's things you could work on, and I think she could definitely benefit from that.
All right, and we're going to wind down on what we miss with New Japan Pro Wrestling. Like we talked about last week, they kicked off the World Tag League with the first night on Monday. We've gone through 5 nights already and how the tournament stands. Over in the A block, we got Shane Haste and Mikey Nichols of TMDK with 6 points, 3-0. Shoto Amino and Ren Narita are 2-1 with 4 points. So are Kaito Kiyomiya and Ryohei Uyoa. You have with 2 points House of Torture, Ishii and Yano, as well as United Empire. You also got you also got Alex Coughlin and Gabe Kidd with 4 points, 2-1, and Bishop Khan and Toya Leona of Gates of Agony with 0 points in the A block. Over in the B block action, you got with 4 points so far Atlantis Jr. and Sabarano Jr., as well as Monster Sauce and Just Five Guys, Taichi and Yuri Uemura, all with 4 points at 2-1. You got 2-0 actually. Then you got Hikaleo and El Phantasmo, Gorillas of Destiny, Yoda Suji and Zenteiko Zengano Jr., as well as those are the people that have 2 points, and then everybody else has 0 points in the B block. So B block is led by Team CMLL, Monster Sauce, and Just Five Guys right now, but we will keep you up to date on the standings in the World Tag League as they go on. I've only been able to watch the first night. Go out of your way to watch that. Bullet Club War Dogs versus Kaito Kiyomiya and Ryohei Uyoa, because Kiyomiya and Gabe Kidd, they just fight on site. On site, they wanted to get on each other's hands on each other. It was great. Great stuff. And we got a super chat donation from the good brother, Will Chisholm. Once again, thank you so much, Will Chisholm. And he says, you notice that WWE not getting as much NIL deal and they getting more independent talent. I guess we know who call that is. Triple H. Is 100% Triple H, because the Vince McMahon call was the NIL talent the Triple H wants the independent talent that he could just put on and they can seamlessly fit into whatever role that he could put them in.
Yeah, and the problem too with the NIL stuff, it benefits the kids, but the problem is that you're getting these athletes who probably, one, wrestling wasn't their career, right? They want to do something that's athletic. Two, that means that's a lot more development you have to really put into. These kids probably don't have charisma that they're looking for because a lot of them are just athletes. So that's a lot more work you have to do when it comes to that. And then three, I think a lot of them don't even end up working out. So it's like you're sending out these deals that benefits the kids, but long term, I don't think it's a real solution to like what you're really looking for. Getting the independent, you're going back into the independents benefits you more because you're getting workers. Some of the workers get benefits from developing the characters. It's a lot more easier for them because they already have a wrestling background.
Yeah, that is very true. Very true. One last note I wanted to bring up as far as like news. Stardom's been dealing with a bunch of injuries, and they announced this week that the World of Stardom Championship, the red belt by Tam Nakano, has been relinquished. There's going to be a new championship matchup with Suzu Suzuki, who won the 5-star Grand Prix. She's going to defend her title shot against Hazuki on December 2nd. The winner of that match will move on to December 29th at Dream Queendom to get in the championship opportunity. And then November 29th, coming up this week, we got a big Kurgan Hall show that has a one-night tournament for competitors. And the winner of that one-night tournament will verse the winner of Hazuki versus Suzu Suzuki for the championship at Dream Queendom. But so many injuries for Stardom. They're like double digits deep on injuries right now because of their schedule that's completely fucked. So deal with that, Stardom. Yeah,
it's a lot. The scheduling and the way that these women work too. So it's not like that's a lot. That's a lot.
Tough. It's tough.
A lot. That's a lot.
But we're done with what we missed. We're going to wind things down with match of that week, and we'll give you our final predictions for Survivor Series here. But I will start things off this week, Josh, with my match of the week. I got 5 matches, but I got some honorable mentions as well. My honorable mentions this week, MJF and Jay White from Full Gear, Golden Jets and Young Bucks from Full Gear, as well as Jon Moxley versus Mark Briscoe from Dynamite. My 5 this week, coming in at number 5, Jon Moxley versus Orange Cassidy from Full Gear. I thought this was a really well-worked matchup and told the proper story of the follow-up from All Out. Number 4 for me this week, from Stardom's Gold Rush on last Sunday, you had Mirai versus Sori Aoi for the Wonder of Stardom Championship. It went to a 30-minute time limit draw, but they were hard-hitting. If you ever see Mirai, I always call her the Hiroki Goto or Tomohiro Ishii of Stardom.
I can see why.
Yes. Hard-hitting, lariats, just hard strikes. Mirai is really good. I've been really a big fan of her this year. And then number 3 for me, Roosh versus Jay White from Dynamite. Roosh beat the absolute Spitfire out of Switchblade. It was ridiculous, but I love Roosh so much. Number 2 for me, Starks and Big Bill versus FTR versus LFI versus House of Black. The latter match exceeded my expectations completely. Great matchup. And of course, number 1. I mean, do I even have to say it? Swerve Strickland, Hangman Adam Page 2. Simple. Josh.
I'm gonna go with top 3. So my 3 are number 3. I'm gonna go with trying to think. Because there was a lot of good matches this past week. I'm gonna go with Mox versus Mark Briscoe. I thought it was a really good match, regardless of the outcome. They even went over. The time even went over. They went like 5 minutes over. So they gave them time. Both guys really worked they worked very well together. 2, I'm gonna go with Roosh and Jay White. That was also a fun matchup. Roosh beat the shit out of him. He was trying to use like the cables, and then he was like, "Fuck it." And then he was like,
"I'll just beat the shit out of him with my hand."
Yeah, that was a great matchup. And I also like the dirty finish that Jay White pulled off, like very slick. Kind of reminded me of like his New Japan days too. Like he'll do like that slick, like you won't even know. He's very good at that. I think that's super I think that's one of the traits that a lot of people kind of look over. And number one, easily Swerve versus Hangman. You got to go with that.
Yes, Annika is firmly agreeing with your top three from this week. It was a great week for AEW between Dynamite and Full Gear for sure, as far as quality matches. But
Yeah, some fun matchups.
let's talk about WWE Survivor Series. It is tonight, the Survivor Series War Games. If you want the full preview, check out myself and Nick Hausman from earlier this week. But you know how we do. Rapid fire, final predictions here. Let's start off with that grudge match that got the big change on SmackDown last night. You're going to see Dragon Lee going one-on-one with Santos Escobar. Escobar turning on the LWO a couple of weeks ago. Dragon Lee trying to stand up for his favorite wrestler of all time, his hero, Rey Mysterio. Who you got here?
I got Escobar. I think that he's the hot hand you go with.
I'm actually going to go with Dragon Lee with the upset here. I'm going to say Carlito comes out with his arm in a sling and he distracts Santos to give Dragon Lee the win.
Happening. Yeah, I think that would be the best way Escobar could lose. But if they go like a straight wrestling match, I think Escobar needs to win.
I agree.
I like that. Yeah, I like that finish.
WWE Women's World Championship. Rhea Ripley will defend against Zoe Stark. Zoe Stark won a women's battle royal a couple of weeks back. She's been picking up momentum ever since then. Rhea Ripley has had the Women's World Championship since WrestleMania. Does she lose it here?
No. Now that was a rapid fire answer. No,
that was a rapid fire correct answer. Mommy's on top. Mommy's on top.
She's having a decent run. I can't really complain about it. I think some momentum kind of really picked up for Rhea for the title. She looks like a prominent champion. You keep going with her. There's nobody right now that's we can't really beat her spot. You know what I mean? Can't really take her spot.
I feel you. I agree. WWE Intercontinental Championship up for grabs as Gunther will defend against The Miz. The Miz is looking to make history and tie the record for the most times as Intercontinental Champion with 9 times, tying Chris Jericho, while Gunther looks to continue his longest reign of all time. I really enjoyed the promo work between these two guys, with Gunther looking down on Miz for being an entertainer, while Miz is trying to prove himself as a wrestler. Their promo on Monday was one of the best that Gunther has been a part of. So who do you think wins this one tonight?
I think Gunther. I think you still continue with him. The feud between him and Miz, I mean, hasn't been bad. It's
overachieved.
It's been better than I expected, especially with a face turn you kind of really didn't expect from Miz. This also face turn is a lot better than his previous face turns, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And but I also aspect of Gunther looking down because he's an entertainer. I actually love, which I was hoping that Gunther should use that more. Like, he's a fucking ring general. He's a badass in the ring. Guys who are not that, who are just entertainers, I think he should use it as like a stepping stone, as in like that would be his gimmick. Like, fuck these entertainers. I'm gonna beat the shit out of all of you.
Facts. We got Annika who says the best mismatch ever, but Gunther wins. It's gonna be the best mismatch ever and the worst match of Gunther's reign. Sorry. We got the women's War Games matchup. It's gonna be Damage Control's Bayley, the WWE Women's Champion Io Sky, Asuka, and the returning Kairi Sane versus Team Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair, Shotzi, and Becky Lynch. The fans will vote on who has the advantage on the kickoff show. Who do you think the fans will vote to have the advantage? Who do you think wins? I'll predict first. I think these stupid ass fucking fans are going to pick the baby faces to have the fucking advantage. And I'm hoping, because I hoped for this last year and I look stupid, I hope they make the right decision, or Triple H done fumbled the fucking Booker of the Year at the last hurdle. You have Damage Control win to solidify them. Please, dear God, Triple H does that. Who do you have winning? Who do you think has the advantage?
I think the baby faces will have the advantage. I think Damage Control wins. I think that's the best. This is the best scenario to go with. You just added Kairi Sane. You just added Asuka. This is the prominent thing you need to go with. I think it's a no-brainer. And you still have build up the Becky Charlotte thing.
Yeah, exactly. You can follow up with that however you want to after that. I hope. I'm really feeling like as we get closer to this matchup, I really feel he's gonna have them lose, and then they're just gonna jump Bailey, and that's gonna be their thing where he's like, they still have momentum. Everybody's talking about them because they turned on Bailey, and I'm like, no, that's not the same as them winning.
That'll be worse. That'll be worse because you just established all of them working together. You just established it. So that'll be worse if you just take Bailey out now when there's no tension. Yet there's tension between Becky and Charlotte that could affect their team. That would be so fucking stupid.
I'm gonna be hopeful. And then finally, the men's War Games matchup is going to be Team Judgment Day, represented by Senior Money in the Bank Damian Priest, his fellow undisputed WWE Tag Team Champion Finn Balor, the NXT North American Champion Dominic Mysterio, JD McDonough, and Drew McIntyre versus Team Cody Rhodes, the World Heavyweight Champion Seth Rollins, Jey Uso, Sami Zayn, and the returning Randy Orton. Outside of Orton, all these baby faces have pretty much been feuding with the Judgment Day since May. So this is the culmination of a 6-month storyline. Who walks out of War Games the victor?
I'm gonna go with Team Cody. I feel like that's probably the best scenario because Judgment Day usually loses a lot anyway, and won't hurt them. It really won't hurt them. I know a lot of people have suggested, like they pointed out, and he turns on Jay tonight, right? I wouldn't want that for it to be tonight. I think you kind of built off of that. It's kind of like what they've been doing with like KO and Jay and everyone else he's fucked over. I think you kind of build off of that. I don't think that should kind of like that's the outcome. Like Orton comes back, he's hot, and then all of a sudden, boom, turns heel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because I've seen these people suggest this, what Bell's saying, Team Cody wins, and then Randy RKO's Jay, like, now we're even. No, even if he says now we're even, he's a heel. He's a heel, guys. Like, he's RKOing Jey Uso, who is one of the top baby faces. It does not matter if it's Randy Orton or not. That's a heel move.
No, it is. And that's why I wouldn't do it now. I wouldn't just build off of that shit. Like, if there's any kind of tension, you build off of that. And then you can have a prominent storyline between Jay and Orton based off of that. I wouldn't do that tonight. That's just, you could kind of build up tension. I think that's fine. Nothing but no real outcome. I wouldn't have Orton do the RKO.
Yeah, I agree with this by Bell. She's like, I wouldn't turn Orton until Cody wins the title. Yep. Yeah, Cody's gonna need challengers, and Orton's one of the biggest championship challengers that he can have. So yeah, you wait until then to really turn heel. That's why, Bell, you don't have Randy RKO, one of his teammates, because that's a heel move. Doesn't matter if it's just Randy Orton being Randy Orton. He said now we're even. No, he's a heel now. Like, it doesn't matter if that's your explanation of, he's still babyface. No, the fans are going to boo him.
Yeah, and that's just, I wouldn't, that's not a problem. Like, again, you could build up the tension, but I would not, once you do that, then it's like, fuck. You know what I mean? That's just, it's dead at that point.
I agree with you, though. I got Team Cody getting the win. I think they get the win in this one, and then they do probably Randy Orton versus Judgment Day. Since he's the only one of the baby faces that hasn't feuded with them, he's the one that's going to feud with them after Survivor Series.
Makes the most sense.
Yeah. So, yeah, I got Team Judgment Day can't win because it would make fucking zero fucking sense if the Judgment Day win and Damian Priest does not immediately just cash in Money in the Bank on Seth Rollins. So to avoid that problem completely, you have Judgment Day lose. So that we're going to be here live tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern time for our WWE Survivor Series War Games watch along. Join us here live. Romeo won't be here, but I'm sure we'll have a couple of folks joining us. And then you could join us live tomorrow at 11:05 a.m. Eastern time for a Survivor Series review. Thank you so much to the True Jaw Josh, Mr. Clutch, coming in clutch once again, joining me live here. Let the people know where they can follow you on social media. What you got going on, sir?
You can follow me at jmpunk321 Twitter. I'm still calling it Twitter. Twitter and Instagram.
I still call it Twitter.
Yeah, I'm like, fuck it. I hate this X shit. Let's stick with Twitter. Fuck it. I'll probably be on tonight. I mean, I'm not really doing nothing, so I'll probably be on for the watch party. We'll see who we could get on for that. We already have it set up, so it's a matter of how many people we're gonna bring on. But yeah, you can find me there. Yeah, you can find me on my socials and probably tonight.
And check out me and Josh for a Full Gear review from earlier this week. One of our most viewed reviews that we've done for our pay-per-view this year. So go over and check that out. You check out me and Jimmy Rackaram on AE Ramble yesterday. And you can follow me on the social media at Tru Heel SP3. Like it says here, follow the crew, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok at Tru Heel Heat. Best way to support us when we're not here live on the channel, patreon.com/Tru Heel Heat. $3 a month gets you exclusive content. The Tru Heel Heat Prediction Championship, which is up right now for Survivor Series weekend. So go over and check that out. And if you want some merchandise from Tru Heel Heat, ProWrestlingTees.com/Tru Heels or foryourwear.com/Tru-Heel-Heat for your exclusive Tru Heel Heat merchandise. I will be back here tomorrow, 11:05 a.m. Eastern time. Josh will be back tonight for our watch along. Join us live for all of that. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the thumbs up on this video. For the True Jaw Josh, it is me, your Tru Heel Phenom, SP3. This has been Tru Heel Heat 252. Gearing up for survival. We are signing off until next time.